My mouth was starting to stretch, my body coming to a compulsion to close it, but physically I couldn't. I was stuck for the moment, then slowly closing my mouth, my hand covering, hoping to mask my yawn while I sat at my desk. Finally, the yawn completed itself, and as I looked around, I could see more and more eyes looking at me, probably judging me.
I know, Nick, some of this paperwork isn't the most flashy. Definitely not at 8 a.m., but it's important you all know these types of forms if you wish to work at the FBI. Now let's look at Form 808.7. This relates to criminals stealing from anyone over the age of 60, specifically targeting into their investment portfolios, like their 401k or Roth IRA. If you don't know what those are yet, figure that out first and put some money in. Not our agency advice, but good future advice. Take it. If you look, pages 440 to 490 covers these types of forms and the way these criminals try to commit these types of crimes. You all have the next 3 hours to read this section and take your test. After, we will grab lunch and allow you all to witness most of yours first autopsy. Sounds good?
The instructor went on, me already holding the thick sheets of paper in the textbook he wanted us to read. This sucks, I said to myself, probably rolling my eyes as I went to the very first page, remembering yesterday and knowing I had one more full day of training left before I could go home. All of this was my idea to begin with myself asking Dip a way to become an officer with the FBI and getting recommended the process and procedures held by the FBI in their California office. I looked around, nearly the entire class staring deep into the textbooks, all the students being around the office and currently deployed at local stations. To make it better, there were 2 students from the Livingston office, one named Greg, who was about 3 years older than me and had an interesting collection of tattoos of Greek gods on his shoulder sleeve. The other officer's name was Becca, a new girl in the department, 1 year younger than me.
You know, Nick, Dip spoke very highly of your abilities last time I spoke with him. I'm hoping you can show me those abilities today.
The professor stated, some chuckles from in front and behind me of other students, with even more judging eyes. Of course, I said to him, which the professor nodded, then adjusting the wire glasses that laid on the crest of his nose, moving to the side of the room where someone had their hand raised. When a criminal sends fraudulent messages to someone in a senior center, requesting access and provisions to their accounts, this can be an example of fraud. I continued to read from my textbook, my mind wandering to what could be at home.
Have you ever had a beer before?
Colin asked Will, who was holding the can up and examining the proud American flag. Then twisting it around, seeing the hockey field with small players chasing after a puck, the words, "Get pucked," in bold gold letters above.
What's hockey?
Will asked, poking at the top of the can, trying to figure out the way to open it.
Pull on that little tag, you see it?
Colin responded, giving Will a couple of seconds to try to figure it out on his own, then reaching out and grabbing it, popping it open, which spooked Will as the final hiss settled inside, and handed it back to him.
Hockey is a game played on ice. It's like soccer. You have a puck and sticks, and there's 2 goals. Each team has 6 players on the ice at a time, and sometimes there fights 2. Also, you get the pun from the can. Get pucked?
Colin explained, waiting for Will's response.
Yeah, I get the joke. They play with a puck and replace the P with an F in pucked, and you get something else.
Then putting the can to his mouth and taking a sip, the alcohol flowing down his throat and into his stomach, a gagging reflex after came from him. Will continued to gas, then trying to swallow the rest of his drink as Colin commentated.
So I guess that was your first beer. You will be okay. You'll get used to it, definitely, after this weekend. Also, you don't have to finish it. When we go camping, we will bring more than just beer. You can have vodka mixed with juice. That's what the girls are bringing. You know, like orange juice, the stuff Nick gets.
Will nodded his head, understanding and setting the barely drank can on the table.
When are we leaving to go camping?
He then asked, Colin giving a quick reply.
When Nick gets back is when we will leave. He should leave midday from his training tomorrow, so I can assume we need to be ready at 5. then get to the actual campsite at 7. Don't worry, Drake. Our roommate has already made our tents when we arrive. That's why he and the 3 others left today.
Will nodded his head. Colin following up his statement with a question to fill time.
So you lived with Nick's uncle and aunt in Montana. That must have been fun up there. See a lot of the mountains and snow.
Will reluctantly nodded his head, trying to remember every detail of his life that Nick had said to him for a story on his life.
Yeah, and I went to college there too. I did business. Then I got kicked out and Nick invited me here.
Will went, doing his best to cover up his story to allow Colin no more questions.
So what college did you go to? For myself, I got to Oregon State, studying engineering. Nerdy, somewhat important stuff.
He continued asking Will, who responded,
Whitefish College. Got a 2-year degree, now I'm here.
hastily wishing for the conversation to end.
So what do they call a 2-year degree? When I complete mine, I will have a master's. What's the term for yours?
Colin replied, testing Will.
They just called it a 2-year degree. I didn't get a fancy name for it.
Will replied, now standing up and making his way to the stairs leading up. Colin spoke before he could hit the first step.
You can be open with me, Will. You seem like a good person, a little off, but a good person. I don't want you to feel you need to feed me a BS story of your life for me to like you.
Then watched as Will raced up the stairs and disappearing.
The human mind is the most fascinating part of the human body. Over 85 billion individual cells make up your brain and produces enough electricity that it can run a low-voltage light bulb. Here, we can see the brain in its full extracted state. The lines covering the brain are called gyri and sulci, and are engineered to allow more mass into the skull. Now we can move on to our patient's mid-region. Let's examine the heart now.
The professor went, still wearing his sweater from earlier, protected by a plastic sheet draped over him as he set the brain down. The autopsy presentation went on for another hour, ending at the toes, which the professor explained helped humans obtain balance. The next day went by more or less than our first 2, with a long study session in the first half of the day, and then being able to leave instead of doing a lab led by the professor. By 1 p.m., we were on the road, racing to get back home for the start of our camping trip. Hours passed before I eventually made it home, then getting the car packed quickly and starting another 2-hour drive to Elwood Campsite up in the mountains. It was already 7 when we arrived there, myself, Colin, and Will hoping out of the car, seeing Drake and his 3 friends, Quinn, Alyssa, and Ellie, already drinking around the campfire, leaving a pile of cans to the side. We joined them in the circle, myself opening a beer and turning on the radio which played in the background, going to a station filled of classical Western music.
So we get up the hill, and above the hill, we can see a giant valley. Well, in the valley are cows, breaking down the fence with a leader right in the middle of the highway. Then we approach down the hill, not sure of what to do, and eventually just honk the horn at the one in the lane. I think we spook it, at least enough that it moved out the way, but then we saw one coming from our side. So Ellie yells, "Move," in my ear, and I hit the gas hard, tires going, and I think we hit 60 miles an hour in under 5 seconds, just blasting and leaving the cows in the dust.
Drake explaining his story of the trip to the location the day before.
You should have killed one. Bring the meat here and we could have had burgers next to a fire.
Colin then joked, the group laughing with him, then being interrupted by a break in the music. I glanced over at the radio, seeing the green power button flash showing power as a man on the line said,
Streaks of light are being reported in the area. Scientists are saying this is an uncommon aurora light show caused by atmospheric gases colliding with solar winds coming from the south.
I looked up, making a comment to the group. I see a bunch of little stars and a half-lit moon, patiently staring at the sky, waiting for anything to happen.
There it is. I see it. I see it.
Alyssa now exclaimed to the group, pointing up. I followed her finger, more stars to where she had pointed at.
See what?
Colin asked with a confused tone, shared by the rest of the group.
It's the Big Dipper, constellations, big images in the sky. If you draw a line between that star to that star and connect all of them, you get like a big pot or a hat. It's a trucker's hat.
she exclaimed, now laughing at her own joke.
We might want to cut her off. Let her rest for the night.
Drake then said, staring over at her. Suddenly, Alyssa's face lit up, with the surroundings beside her, and everything became fully lit. I moved back in my seat, my mind confused on what had happened, looking at everyone in the group looking around, confused as if the sky was turned on for a second by light switch, then suddenly flipped back off.
Was it just me, or could you guys see everything like it was daytime?
Quinn said.
It wasn't just you.
Ellie confirmed, a slight fear in her eyes for what had just happened. We looked at the radio, seeing if there would be any updated for what could explain what just happened. Suddenly the lights turned on again, myself seeing the radio clear as day, even reading the word Workman logo on it. I then looked up, the light of daylight fading and a streak of light now being focused. I pointed, alerting everyone to the shooting star-like object, now making its descent on Earth. I continued to follow it with my fingers, tracking as it nosedived to the Earth, a shake of the ground we stood on which knocked a log in the fire down, ensuring that it made contact with the Earth. The loudest boom I had ever heard in my life, confirming that.
You guys want to go check it out?
Drake asked the group, a bunch of drunk but eager faces agreeing with him. Drake stood up, followed by everyone else as he rushed into the woods, carrying a flashlight and hoping to find a space treasure.
Great. Just a bunch of drunk kids running into the woods. What could go wrong?
Will then said, following his brother. The campsite behind them came out of picture, with the group of 7 now single-filed in the woods. We searched for nearly 10 minutes, myself leading us through the brush and openings left by trees, eventually seeing a small fire in a small patch of grass. We jogged over to it, myself and Collins subtracting the oxygen that gave life to the fire and the iridescent glow of the flashlights exposing the cause. There laid 3 stones, much like the shape of a rugged football with green glow vein like bulges wrapping around each stone. I picked one up, examining it, the stone being black, much blacker than any stone in the area, myself feeling it could only be from space.
What are these things?
Quinn asked.
Asteroids, or at least pieces of it. That's what the rock is, but I don't know why it's green and glowing.
Drake responded.
Could be bacteria.
Ellie said.
Well, that would mean alien life.
Drake replied, fully grasping what it could mean by the object he was holding.
Today is such a strange but exciting day. Today is such a strange but exciting day.
I bet I have a stranger story.
Will then bubbled out of his mouth, then going over to a bush and puking. I rushed over to him, bending down beside and whispering, "You can't tell your strange story, okay? No one wants to hear it." Then grabbing and standing him up straight again, helping him walk. "We should get back to camp, collect all of the samples, and then we can go to the lab tomorrow and figure out what this is." Everyone nodded in agreement, and Colin and Drake picked up the remaining stones, using their t-shirts as a makeshift backpack to carry them. I waited for Will, who tried to get in line, walking 10 feet before turning away and puking into another bush while on the ground. We waited ahead of him by 30 feet, hearing him hurling and myself calling, "Let's try to hurry it up, buddy." A minute passed before he returned, making his way back with us to camp. A feeling of anxiety was over the camp when we got back, mostly because of the possibility that alien life could exist in those stones, which would only be the second craziest things that has happened to me in the course of the year. We went to bed at nearly 4 a.m., myself and Will sleeping together with the stones in Drake and Colin's bed. An hour later, another flash came by, this time persistent and seemed to directly go into our eyes. I looked out the tent, the light shining and beaming in, with a couple yells outside. Then a scream from one of the girls, and I unzipped the tent, exposing myself to the 20 people outside, wearing hazmat suits next to military-grade vehicles with floodlights pointed against us. I looked over to Drake and Colin's tent, 2 men coming out, each carrying a stone in hand. I watched as they walked over to a man in a suit, holding a large case which seemed to be padded, the stones being dropped in.
ID.
A man then said beside me, reaching out his hand in a white glove. I reached back into the tent, grabbing my stuff and pulling my wallet out, handing him the ID, then saying, I am with the Livingston Department. He looked at it, then handing it back to me, asking Will.
ID.
Will didn't speak, unsure of what to say, allowing me to butt in. He doesn't have it. He lost it while at a bar and is having one be sent to him. The man then got distracted, Ellie and Alyssa arguing with one of the officers. I watched as they handed him their IDs, complying.
You all can go back to bed. Act like we were never here, and please don't discuss these stones. It's very possible these are foreign objects and could be extremely dangerous if word got out in the community.
The man in the suit said, now getting in the passenger side of the military vehicle and driving off. The camp cleared within the next minute, and just like that, it felt like we were once again alone in the woods. Not a single light showing anything. We arrived home the next day, me and Will going upstairs to unpack everything. He was across the room, sitting upright on his futon we had bought of him as a bed, sifting through his belongings. He then set his bag down on the floor. A clank sound's going off, and I looked over at him. You dropped something? I asked.
No.
He responded, rummaging through his bag, a faint green light coming through the fabric on the bag. Do you have one of the stones? I asked him, himself looking up in confusion, replying.
If I found one, it's mine. It's a souvenir.
Then pulling out the radio from his bag, the light shining on it showing it was on, the soft music coming to my ears. I chuckled, saying, I forgot I gave you that. Now looking down, presumably allowing Will to drop the stone into a shoebox and slide it in under his bed. The light was blinking overhead. He looked around, a strange room, one that evaded any attempts in his memories to identify. The dull, single-lit light bulb above not helping, only illuminating himself and the silver metal table from where he sat. He didn't know what to think, just the thoughts of someone in his bedroom grabbing him, and then him waking in this room. A voice over an intercom demanding him to sit moments before. A creak came now from across the room, and footsteps slowly began to creep toward his position. His heart started to race. The dark figure of a man striding toward him sent a chill down his spine.
It's good to see you again.
The figure went.
Dr. Latham, I thought you were...
Instructing Nick's class, we finished yesterday, then I ordered my men to bring you to me.
Why's that?
Dip went. His mind twisted for why his longtime friend would betray him.
I want to know the location and being you made contact with. I believe his name is Alos. I want to know about the world he brought you to in the smoke.
Dip sat back, not knowing where to begin for this conversation.
It's a dark world, with terrible, terrible creatures. Alos was there with us, separated at first, but we came together at the end. We tried leaving, then an animal attacked us. Alos distracted it, running away with the creature following, allowing me and my partner Nick to escape.
I could hear my feet break against the stone ground below me, the earth nearly shaking as a creature that weighed a ton chased me through the vast wasteland. I wanted to think of Will, Nick, even my old friend Dip, look around my shoulder and see that they had vanished in the smoke, but I was not giving the opportunity. I continued to run for my life, as any second to stop would give the creature behind me an attempt on my life. I started to stretch out my strides, not knowing when the pursuit would end. Ahead of me was nothing but a vast wasteland, with myself not familiar enough to make a plan to evade this creature using resources around me. Suddenly, I heard another roar. A creature not from behind me, but beside. I peered my head over. Another large creature, putting itself up on two large legs with a head full of razor-sharp teeth, ran parallel to me on my left. I started to drift right, knowing I needed to get distance from this creature as well. I continued to peer ahead, my legs now feeling strained as I'd been running for the last 5 minutes. I then could see the top of cliffs ahead of me. the sheer, steep rock face dead on in my path. I kept running towards it, a thought of panic in my mind, knowing it would only become an obstacle in a minute. I looked to my side again, the parallel creature now nearly behind me, closing the gap with every second that passes. I need a miracle now, a thought in my mind passed. I was now running against the rock face, the dark beige stones being a constant reminder of the pain they were causing. Then I saw an opening in the rock face, a small hole from where I could sneak into. I looked behind me, both of the trailing creatures eyeing me down, their intent to end me more clearer than ever, with patience running out. I rushed toward the opening, now only 50 yards in front of me. The steps behind me got closer and closer, and then I turned my body, sneaking into the hole as the first creature rushed past, his stomps causing the roof of the cave I stood in to crash with dust. The other creature stopped right before the opening, lowering its head and peering in at me, butting its head against the opening. It let out a roar, striking my eardrums as the blade-like teeth made me stay still. It then wandered off, as I retreated into the cave. I explored for an hour, realizing the cave led up to the top of the mountain. A small home system could be used for inhabits small enough. Soon enough, I reached the top, looking out to the vast plains that took up the land. In the distance, I could now see another mountain, this one striking me from how it was shaped. It appeared to be twisted, almost like a twig being snapped in multiple pieces, with small fragments still being attached. But this mountain was ginormous, reaching the red-streaked clouds above. If Galen has a home in this deserted place, I would think it would be there, I muttered to myself, stories the Indians would tell me. I also knew I wouldn't have long till this place was completely dark, that I would have to find resources to survive the night. I stumbled away from the cave system that had protected me, doing my best to remember a path to return to. A walk of around 5 minutes passed before I had found what I was looking for upon the heights of the mountain I stood on. A bush, barely taller than me, holding the fruit I needed. I approached cautiously, then reaching in, plucking the fruit from upon a branch, pulling the bush along, and then watched as it lit up. I stumbled back, almost in shock, as thousands of small bugs filled with a blue neon light emerged and took off flight from the branches of the bush. Then, as a flock of birds migrated as one to another nearby bush, I moved back to the original bush, not noticing any more of the light bugs as I plucked another fruit, this one more plump than the other. Within moments, my body carried all of the food it could, and I trekked back to camp. I found a small hole in the cave system, leading to the main opening within a few steps. I dropped the fruit to the floor, some dust kicking up as I stepped back and lied against the rocks. "How is home?" I spoke out, waiting for a response. I waited, not receiving any sign of him. "You were born here. This planet is connected to you. I know you can hear me." I went again.
I do hear you, Alos.
A smile came across my face, a sense of relief upon hearing my escape plan. "Glad to see you got home safe, Will."
Dip, what kind of things does Alos want to do to this planet?
Dr. Lightom asked Dip, himself sipping the cup of water he had requested.
He wants to live in peace. He's not here to cause harm.
Dip replied, answering Latom's question without knowing the full answer for himself.
Don't protect him, Dip. You're a good man. He's not a good creature. He's lied to you, and it hurts to see it.
Latom replied to him,
"And how's that?"
Dip questioned Latom, calling the bluff that he himself has said in a similar position. Latom then tossed an object at the table, clanking against the metal as it came to focus for Deep. He looked at the pale object, the skull of a fox with 3 horns rising upon the crest of its head.
What is that?
Dip asked him.
New resident of California, something we believe is one of the freaky things Alice has brought into this planet.
Latom spoke, Dip staring at the skull of a creature he could only imagine, wondering if Latom could be telling the truth. Fall is coming soon, she thought to herself, her fingers wiggling as a cold breeze brushed past her. She kept walking, however, her dog Chico, the small Eskimo dog she had gotten a few years back when she first moved to Ottsville, whose fur was as white as the snow she had been waiting for. But Linda didn't seem to mind the longer fall time, herself thinking of how it was only Halloween a week ago and wishing she could rewind back to summer. She now found herself stopped, the dog taking a second as it peered off from the concrete trail, relieving itself of any liquids next to a bush while she took cover under the light of a street lamp. She looked around, the city trail a ghost town of any other humans, with the rustles of twigs nearby from squirrels chasing each other frantically up trees being the only sounds from a calming night. "Let's do chai," she argued to the pup, the girl's ears popping up and looking into the woods, then back at Linda, now continuing to go about on the trail. Another breeze went over her, this time the air more chilling, and the goosebumps went up her arm. She shuddered, coming to a stop and staying still, a feeling coming over. She peered over her shoulder, expecting to see someone walking the trail behind her, but rubbed her feelings of being watched away as no one stood where she expected. Anyway, she started again, this time picking up her pace, her dog jumping a little bit in an excited manner. She made herself around a corner of the trail, a car not more than 30 yards away driving by from the main roads, its headlight illuminating the trees ahead. She again paused in her tracks, asking herself if something was hiding behind the trees in front of her. She started to pray to God, hoping another car would pass to give herself another look of anything out there in front of her. "We live in a good town. No one here would hurt me," she muttered to herself, finding the confidence to keep moving forward as her dog Chico pulled against the leash, pulling her forward. She proceeded cautiously on the trail, her hands swaying side to side, sweeping the area in front of her for any threats. A car's lights then came before her, again lighting the forest up, enough to show Linda a long arm-like stick that moved back behind the cover of the trunk of a large oak tree. "Let's go, Chico," she stated, an anxious, scared part of her voice coming out as she got off the trail. She started to make herself go toward the road, hoping to be safe in the view of the public. The dog started to run forward, acting like Linda was playing a game as she tried to navigate them home safely. She stared at the road, now less than 20 yards away, with both her sides being exposed to the cover of the large trees in the park. A perfect opportunity for someone to ambush her. During this time, she could feel her shoes start to become soaked, the white material now forever ruined by the murky mud. A touch she would have cared about an hour ago, now merely an afterthought. She continued to quicken her pace toward the road, now only a few yards from the terrible tree cover. Then she tripped, or rather pushed to the ground. Her face hit the mud as she let go of the leash, her dog now running off, heavy footsteps coming from her sides as if they were chasing the dog. She reached for her back, which was now burning, causing her eyes to tear up. She felt the moisture of her own blood, then the cut skin as yells from the town started to fill her eardrums. She looked up, someone racing to her, not knowing if they were on her side or the one that had caused this. The coffee was dull. The little caramel that the box claimed was in was absent, and I regretted agreeing to Dip that I would try it. He looked over to my side as we sat paired, waiting for the Monday town hall meeting to start with all of the officers. A grin as he realized my distaste, saying, "At least you know now you don't like it. It's better than never knowing Nick. Really is." I get the point, but not liking something really sucks, I replied back. Dip chuckled as the Chief Officer Angel started to speak to the room. I am going to start with cases from this weekend in the state. We had a small home break in Pendleton, and a state was robbed of nearly $15,000. Another break-in was at Burns. This one, the total stolen was $5,000. Finally, in Tillamook, a woman was assaulted in a local park. For all these cases, no suspect has been identified, but the two robberies have very good leads. For local cases, we didn't have much over the weekend. 2 men were picked up for drugs use, and 1 case of someone shoplifting at a mall. Let's make it a good week all. He finished, now stepping down from the podium and leaving us to dismiss ourselves. Dip left a moment after, finishing the cup of coffee he had made, now stacking his cup into mine and tossing it as we headed to his office. Dip sat down at his desk, powering up his desktop as I took out my laptop, surfing through the local news outlets and checking email, killing time as I waited for Dip to give direction. Interesting. Dip now spoke, getting my attention. He turned his monitor around, showing me the back of a woman, a large red swollen cut stretching from her shoulder to torso. This was done in Ottsville, still no leads on what did this. Apparently she was walking her dog in the local park, got attacked, and the attacker left her, didn't even try to rob her. Her dog is missing too, but that could be nothing. Dip spoke, scrolling down more of the police report. It's sad. Hopefully they find who'd do it. I stated, filling the void of silence with something. Or what did it? Dip said, pointing to the parallel second cut on the woman's back. What would cause that? I asked out loud, myself knowing Dip was pondering the same thing. That might be the question of the day, Nick. Let's think about it on our ride to Highway 88. We are patrolling there today. I moaned, knowing that highway would mean only a slow and wasteful type of day. Keep your laptop with you. Might be worth it to look more into this case on the road. We stayed parked on the highway the remaining 8 hours of our shift. The walkie-dead silent the entire day as Dip moved the car to only 4 distinct spots along the length of road. Myself not finding much more into the case in Tillamook, a frustration growing over the lack of knowledge about it. I later got home, greeting Will, who was in my home, playing an old handheld game console which I had since I was in high school, propped up in my bed. He didn't seem to notice me as I entered the room, focused on the side-scrolling game I myself was addicted to a few years back, an addiction that allowed me to ignore anyone in the room with me. He then shook the console, an act of frustration meaning he must have lost the level, allowing him to break his addiction and put the attention on me. Brute is an asshole, he said, myself recognizing the giant evil lizard that was part of the Terran Bros dynasty. He is a tough guy to beat. If I remember correctly, you have to stomp on him 3 times to kill him. Correct, he responded, then adding, but there's nothing like him that exists in this world? Right. I shook my head. Yeah, no giant monster lizards, I said now, sitting next to him. You guys don't have any monsters here, do you? Will asked. I believe himself comparing his former reality to his current. No, not anything that you have experienced, but we do have crocodiles, which are basically dinosaurs. Dinosaurs? Will said, having without a clue what they could mean, even though I believe I saw a small T-Rex in the smoke world right before we left. Old animals that used to roam the earth before us? I replied to him, Will nodding, understanding with a grin. So, no more monsters? Will said, a sign of relief from how he asked it. Maybe, but there's something I should show you. I stood up and walked over to my desk, Will eagerly waiting for me to return with what I wanted to show him. I found this over a year ago. I think it's a log of every being that is unnatural to this world. I opened the first page, exposing the devilish creature I knew as Alos. Alos, Will said, pointing to the page. I hope he's okay. He said, myself thinking if I truly like the being or not. I flipped the page, exposing the Mothman type of creature which Will nodded, seemingly knowing what it is. Have you seen this creature before? He looked over at me and nodded, adding context. Bad, crazy tribe out in the middle of nowhere. I flipped the page again, exposing the beautiful women who had tried to drink my blood, not getting a reaction from Will. I flipped the page again, this time showing the snakes who had ripped me for my blood. Still no reaction, which I flipped to the other page, seeing the talking tomatoes, and again, Will not giving a reaction of knowledge of the being. I then flipped the page, seeing the T-Rex-like creature that had attacked us in the smoke world. Scary bad guy, Will said, his fear for the creature visibly showing. Yeah, don't want to see him again, I replied, now flipping the other page expecting it to be blank, which it was. I then closed the journal, saying to Will, I can't explain these creatures, except for the fact that they existed in this world at one time, and that I encountered them. They come from my world then, right? Will asked, the question of monsters spilling over from another dimension terrorizing me. 30 minutes left, Joe, he said to himself, peering down Allen Drive for the third time this night. He drove slow, waiting for the time to go by, peering down the alleyways of the local restaurants and shops. He then noticed something. One of the larger dumpsters tipped over and moved 5 feet away from the wall from where it usually sat. He pulled his vehicle over, stepping out and walking down, not a human in sight. He reached the dumpster within moments, looking burgers and fries scattered across the floor. The only thing missing is the meat. Joe said to himself, thinking the raccoons are starting to get picky with what they have. He walked past the trash can, inspecting the one behind, with which seemed to have been gone through from the numerous slashes in the bags and some of it spilling out in front. These bastards leave a real mess, Joe said, then chuckling on the idea of someone in the morning shift picking it up. He now reached the end of the alley, the area clear of any hungry humans, which was a slight possibility but one not to be ruled out, or raccoons, which he assumed was the culprit. He started to walk back, now seeing the bags on top of the second garbage bin start to shake and rustle. He paused and waited, waiting for the bag to move again. He now approached cautiously, his hand hovering the holster from where his pistol laid, ready for defend himself. Come one out of there, Joe demanded, hoping to spook the being inside. He hated this part of the job, the moment before something would happen, as the unexpected was a common truth. A bag then popped from the other side of the alley as Joe moved his attention to that direction. There he saw a luminous, skinny, tall figure, staring at him. White, glowing eyes almost like flashlights maintaining eye contact. A sound from beside him startled him. Another long creature rising from the trash can, soda from a drink can splashing on Joe as he watched in horror as the creature lifted his arm and striking down, slashing Joe across the chest as he backed up retreating. He stumbled down, giving the attacker time to leave the trash can and rush toward the other being. Joe looked up. Both of the nearly 8-foot creatures stood at the end of the alley, right before his parked police car. Joe pulled his gun, shooting at the creatures, striking one in the shoulder from how it reacted before running off. Joe then pulled his phone from his waist to his ear, calling. Officer down on 12th and Allen Drive. 2 suspects, both unusual, could be on stilts. Need medical assistance ASAP. Then hanging up, the blood from his body spilling out onto him, the cold bitterness of the night making him feel isolated. He awoke nearly an hour later, the bed of a hospital providing more support than the concrete from where his last memory was. He looked down, his uniform taken off with 2 strips of patches running across his body. Joe thought about the women from Sunday night, seeing the 2 scars then ran across her back and connected the dots to what had now happened to him. Joe, you okay? You need anything? Joe looked up, startled that another being was in the room, but saw the familiar face of his supervisor standing over him. I'm fine, he replied back, his voice tired and weak. You took quite a hit from the attacker. I have our men looking for him now. Do you have a description of them? Tall. The supervisor chuckled. Tall, Like basketball tall. Taller. Do you think you know what this thing is? I asked Dip, his speedometer slowly starting to over 85. I believe a thought in his head pressing him on how soon we will be there. I'm not sure. 2 people attacked in 2 separate towns. Both locations have no correlation to each other. An image of Boogeyman, and 2 claws marks drawn on the victims being the only driving factors. Besides that, no one has seen a thing. Dip replied, drawing a blank which the entire county we were headed to already was at. The thing dug through the trash, too, I said. Makes me think we aren't chasing a human. Dip replied, then adding, but I don't think the local officials will be too nice to me if I say that. We arrived to Tillamook nearly an hour later, the sun nearly setting in the small town, meeting with Chief Johnston at arrival. Glad to see you got here, okay? We have you situated at the Flo Cavo Hotel, giving you excellent ocean views a short walk away. That's good. I can use some shut-eye, definitely driving through parts of the wilderness, waiting for a deer to pop up any second to hit me, Dip said with a chuckle. Johnston forced a smile on his older, wrinkled face. We don't see much deer here anymore. Used to have an issue about 2 years ago, but since then we see less and less. Thinking the plants they eat are going ancient here. Seems like a good thing to me, Dip said, now grabbing his bag and heading to the hotel room, myself following. Once we reached the room, Dip sat down at his bed, saying out loud to me, I would go to bed soon. The chief is organizing a meeting in the morning, and a double shift will occur patrolling both Ottsville and Tillamook. And what's your thoughts about that? I asked Dip, trying to get an idea of where his head was at. I don't think we will find much, but I am not leading this effort. I'm simply supplying consolation. And what do you console of the chief's plan? I asked him, intrigued. We are looking in the wrong place, Dip said, coldly and staring out the window, seeing the tips of trees blocking the ocean view beyond. Where do you think we should look? I asked him. These things, they aren't humans. They are more like animals, which means they hunt other animals, meaning they hunt the wildlife around here. A wildlife that is not around here anymore. Absent. So I think these things are exploring more territory to figure out a new food source. Dip said, the wind outside howling against the trees. Dylan, it's 8 a.m. in the morning, slow down. Michael called behind him, about 20 steps behind already and regretting agreeing to go on this hike. He continued to look up, Dylan not even looking back as he climbed up the rough dirt trail, making a turn and hiding among the trees. Jesus Christ, Michael muttered under his breath, his legs already feeling the stress of how long he's taken off any decent exercise. Minutes passed before he made the same turn, Dylan standing still upon a high rise, overlooking part of the mountain. Another minute passed before Michael reached him, his effort reluctant, assuring and preparing himself for the moment that Dylan would run off again. He finally reached him, putting his arm shoulder, catching himself and forcing Dylan to stay where he was. However, Dylan didn't react, but instead fell into a trance-like state. What going on, buddy? You still with me? Michael asked, Dylan's eyes focused and gloss-like. No movement like a statue. In Dylan's mind, fear was brewing. What did I just see? Was that Bigfoot? It was to Slim. His mind filled with these thoughts, a hold from Michael not even strong enough for him to feel, less to pull him out of his thought. He then saw it again, the nimble, long, wooden creature which camouflaged nearly perfect with the surrounding lumber, moving gracefully in an open patch of grass. Could that be just another tree branch? Dylan finally said out loud, not to anyone directly, but more of a feeling to comprehend what was going on. What are you talking about, buddy? Michael now said, scared of what was doing this to one of his best friends. Look, Dylan said quietly, nearly holding his breath like he didn't want the woods to hear him. Michael looked down in the valley, expecting to see some type of wildlife, a wandering elk, a group of coyotes, maybe even a black bear with its cub. He peered, seeing nothing but the empty wilderness ahead of him. I must be missing something. Michael spoke to himself. What is he seeing? Then a movement. A branch limb which looked to have been pulled down by something. He looked for the actioner. A curious bear looking for sap on the tree, being the logical answer for the branch moving. Michael stared at the tree, a little bit slimmer and shorter than most of the trees, but still over 12 feet tall in stature. He continued to stare, then it moved. It moved a foot. He looked at the tree beside it, judging its current location with another beside. That tree is moving now. It has legs. The tree has legs. He watched in awe as the two trees passed in unison, going behind thicker brush and disappearing. Michael looked at Dylan again. What the hell was that? He asked in shock. Dylan still stared, causing Michael to look over, confirming what he thought could have been his imagination as he looked it down, meeting the eyes of one of the trees in the woods. These boys are all spooked up. Talked to the ranger about these wooden people for nearly an hour and a half. The ranger had to agree with their delusions before they would finally leave. Needed to know the police would be notified. Even asked for a ride home. Real bad boys, you know. They skipped school to come out and hike. One of them, real chubby, apparently ran all the way to the main cabin. His heart rate was up to 170. I'll tell you, Dip, these boys might have been high on something. All of this just an illusion. Thanks, Chief Johnston. We will go talk to them. They are back at school now, yes? Dip replied. I could tell already over this lead and call with the chief. Yes, Otta High. Should be close to the hotel. The chief went. Dip ending the call as soon as he got the information he needed. So 2 wooden creatures, yes, walking upward like a human? Dip asked the 2 young men, barely old enough to drive in front of us. 3. And they were huge, long, skinny, but tall, and their arms stretched, and their hands, they had 2 fingers. One of the boys said, myself forgetting their names from the first introduction. 2 fingers, Dip asked, waiting for reassurance. Yeah, 2 distinct fingers. It was weird, like alien type of stuff, bro. The other man said. I'll make a note and take a call. Nick, are you good transcription their stories up? Dip asked, leaving the room before I could agree, knowing I didn't want to start with them. So, let's walk through the beginning of the day. I reluctantly went, digging up my notebook from my pocket to take notes. Attention, we don't have an image description of who we are looking for. Just that they are living in these woods and have attacked someone from both communities. Be prepared to take them alive, but also be prepared to use necessary force. We don't want this threat escaping. If anyone is clear talk to one of your coordinators, they know the game plan in and out. Best of luck, men. Dip ended his statement confidently, stepping down from the hood of the car he used as a podium, talking to 30 men total that were sent to spend a day in the woods. You didn't actually tell them what they are looking for, I said to him. I don't even know what we are looking for. Best to get to their heads there's a maniac out there doing this than some living tree. I nodded my head, following him and joining a forming captain's circle. I hope this plan of yours is right, Dip. I'm paying 15 people total overtime. I'm hoping it is too. It has to be. Dip silently said, walking off, joining the patrol which covered the south side of the forest. A few hours passed in the forest, the large oak trees above and a quiet stillness in the woods giving me an uneasy feeling. We were filled up in a line, Dip behind me as the caboose as 6 men led on. Then radio chatter came in from the front. They muffled voices barely coming through, but I could make out 3 words. We got something. We all jogged to the location, our trail lead saying that they were at the north side of the forest, at the base of Mount George. It took us nearly 20 minutes to reach them, arriving to a scene filled with people. Both I recognized from this morning, and even more I didn't recognize at all, wearing silver hazmat suits. I went deeper into the circle, trying to find the something they were talking about, realizing it was a corpse. At least from what I could see, 2 people decked in hazmat suits rolling a cart that seemed to be extended, a sheet blocking the thin but long silhouette of a creature, not human, inside. I watched as the 2 men then loaded it into a van, careful not to expose any of it to myself and the other officers watching. "What was that thing?" I asked to the group. I heard humors it was a tree person, but I don't think I can believe it. An officer beside me responded. Me and Dip spent the next 2 days out in those woods, the effort being concluded after that since the belief of anything more in those woods was proved doubtful at best. The corpse of what was found in those woods was never disclosed, and neither the actual group that took the corpse in the first place. Within a few weeks after our original trip, word got back to us that the local deer population in the area had increased, providing some merit to Dip's theory that these creatures were indeed hunting for food. I'd like to hope that what they did kill in those woods were the last of the creature, since the outline drawing that had appeared in my journal showed nothing more than a boogeyman. But there are days where my idea I know is wrong. We should be home in 20 Beck. Then after that we can enjoy the night to ourselves. He said to the girl beside him, "I am looking forward to it, but don't rush it. My dad is always on me about driving when deer are out." She responded to him, rubbing the inside of his leg. "I haven't seen a hit deer in over a month. They have left this place," Cooper confidently said as he rounded the trees with his vehicle. Becky laughed, maybe signaling that he was right as he tapped on the steering wheel, looking forward to the rest of the night. Then a flash came before his car, his foot hitting the brakes as the rubber rubbed on the pavement, leaving a mark which stretched 5 feet. "Damn, Beck, you had to jinx me," Cooper said, watching the deer run through the forest to his left. He then looked the opposite way, making sure that no other deer were coming from the right side as well before he took off. But there wasn't. Instead, small white glimpses of light, almost like flashlights, met his wandering eyes. "What the hell?" he said, seeing the white glowing orbs, appearing to be a set like the headlamps with 2 separate bulbs, each situated up 10 to 15 feet tall, hovering below the leafy tips of trees. "Let's get out of here," Becky pleaded to Cooper, sensing the fear she had of what these things could be as Cooper started to count the pairs. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He continued to count, Becky hitting him and screaming, "Just move the damn car." Cooper then started to hit the gas, the engine roaring in disagreement with the choice alerting all living things of where he was. Cooper then looked in the rear view at the bulbs, hoping to finish his count, as the eyes followed his car as he left the scene. "Thank you. Come again?" Badesh went, waving goodbye to maybe the 100th customer of the day. He listened to the bell that rung when they left, annoyed but keeping him alert for the last hour of his shift. He now stared at the empty rows of his convenience store, a common sight for him, but one he dreaded. Another half-hour passed before the bell would ring, alerting him that someone had entered the store. He lifted his eyelids up, flashing them a few times to fully awake himself before looking for the new customer. He didn't see anyone at his initial look around, even the parking lot outside empty of any cars. Had he imagined the ringing of the bell? "I am not going that insane," he relayed to himself. "Hello," he mouthed out loud to the store, hoping a response would come in. From the back, he could hear something move. Maybe a bag of chips fall down, or a drink be set on a counter. But without warning, he saw someone pop their head up, almost like a prairie dog searching for a screeching hawk before ducking again. But Badesh knew something was off. The person was a woman who looked younger, her skin glowing with blonde bangs covering her forehead, like how a child would wear them. He knew the person in his store couldn't be over the age of 15, and as the young girl rounded the row, Badesh could get a full look of her. Her stature was minimized, with no hairs on top of her petite head above the height of 5'3". Her arms, legs, and general body was skinny, much like a child. "Do you have a parent with you, kid?" Badesh now called across the store to her, now noticing the small patches and holes mixed onto her already worn and dirty clothes. He now even had a worse feeling about this kid's life, his sorrow sinking into his stomach, the silence that she had hurting. "You let me know if you need anything, okay?" He called out again without a response from the girl. Then he heard a low buzzing, rising his head above and to the left, the red small dot on the security camera, which signaled it was filming live throbbing on and off every few seconds. "What's up with that?" he asked himself, approaching and now inspecting the camera for any malfunction. The ring of the bell now came again from the entrance, then again and again. Badesh peered back. 5 people now staring at him, all wearing different animal masks, completely covering any signs of identification. They stood in a group, with one wearing a tiger mask stepped out in front of the group, stomping its foot signaling to the 4 behind to start looting the store. The tiger masked being then approached Badesh, taking the money from the register laying on the counter, stuffing the couple hundreds worth of bills into its pant pockets. The masked tiger now kept eye contact with Badesh. Badesh looked beyond the masked user, looking as items were ripped from the shelves and stuffed into the thief's jacket and pants pockets. Within 3 minutes, they seemed done, all of the fresh, heated food now taken, and drinks and car snacks being brought outside. His focus then went on the masked tiger again, the figure now jumping the counter and striking Badesh into his rib with its fist. Badesh went back, feeling the air be knocked out of him as he landed on the ground heaving. Badesh then passed out for a moment, himself awaking to his store being empty of any masked criminals. Now the little girl at the counter opening a water bottle in her hand and placing it on the counter. Badesh stared at her, her facial expression unfazed from the robbery and assault that had just happened. Badesh closed his eyes again, wincing at the painful feeling in his mid-region, now opening his eyes again to see the little girl gone. "So how are you feeling, Mr. Rashinka?" "Good, officer. I'm not feeling much pain unless I touch where the attacker struck, and you can call me Badesh, mister. You can call me Dip. Want to thank you again for allowing us to ask about this incident. Just doing our part to make sure that this case gets solved." Badesh nodded, now showing us around the store, the shelves still empty from when the looters stole everything. After a minute, we returned to the front of the store counter, Badesh going over the events that day. I was waiting here, alone with a girl. Couldn't be over 15, but then a group of 5 individuals came in with their faces covered. I was checking on the security camera at this time, else I would have locked the cash box. But they stole that and around $400 worth of food. "Does your security camera often have issues?" Dip asked Badesh, who had just finished. "I have never had issues with it until last night, but it's also an older machine. Eventually, you know it's going to give out." Badesh replied, prompting Dip, "So do you have any footage from that night at all?" A moment later, Badesh was taking the tape out of the camera and went into a back room. Once there, he plugged the tape into the computer on the desk, a file with the day of the looting appearing. Badesh clicked on it. The film started rolling as he fast-forwarded to the time of the attack. There we saw the girl walk into the store, her youth and her clothes being concerning factors for me and Dip. We continued to watch, seeing the girl walk straight to the back and Badesh go to the counter calling out to her. The Badesh started to stare at the camera and the image started to fade and static began to take over the screen. "Seems like someone got into the system," Dip said, then talking to me. "I am going to put out a report for missing children in the area. We may have one here who was a witness." Then pulling out his phone and leaving the room. I walked inside my own room, hearing the small and shallow echo of Will upstairs. I made my way up to him, preparing myself to tell him I would be late getting home tonight. I walked inside, finding Will in a meditation pose on the bed, both eyes closed and staring at the wall. "I am trying my best," he said to someone. "Try harder. I can't be stuck here forever." A voice around went, surrounding the entirety of my head. "Who is that?" I asked, startling Will, who opened his eyes. "Will, who was that?" I interrogated him. "Alos, he's trapped in the smoke world. He thinks I can get him free, get him back to us." Will explained. "He is alive. Where is he staying?" I continued saying to him. "He lives in one of the cliffs, but I think he is trying to find a group who would know more about me achieving my potential." Will came back. "Achieving your potential?" I went. "Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means, except for Alos to be back with us in this world once I am successful." Will explained. I didn't know what to think of it. An idea that whatever Will was talking to was a being from an alternate dimension, or something pretending to be stuck crossed my mind. Also the fact that Will has more potential in something. How would Will even get Alos back? I shook my head, reminding myself I told Dip I would meet him at 5:20 at the station, with the time just hitting 5. "I will be gone for the night. Try not to do anything too crazy while I'm gone," I said to Will, who nodded as I left the room. The cop drove down the street, the time now passing 8 p.m., and the first stars started to come out for the night ahead. He had missed these nighttime patrols, watching as the town he resided in shut down for the night and everyone was going home. But for this night, it wasn't everyone, as he could see people off in the distance of a local park that was bound to close past 7:30 due to a city ordinance. He pulled into the parking lot for the park, seeing a group of kids about 250 yards away. There he could make an estimate that they were around the age of 14 all the way to 16, and noticed all of them wore baggy and dirty clothing, something that could be considered common after a long day of play. He stepped out of his vehicle, some of the kids' heads turning immediately to watch him approach. The laughter and chatter from their way stopped as more and more of the kids turned their heads, watching the officer march another 10 yards toward them. Then one started to run off, followed by another, then another, until all 8 of the kids started to run away from the officer. The officer then picked up his speed, but failing to catch up with any of them, reaching the spot where they sat at after 40 seconds. He looked down at the ground, noticing wrappers of discarded food laying on the ground, some dollar bills also laying, then being swept by the wind and shoved around. "You kids left your change," the officer yelled out, hoping his words would make any of them return. He waited for 10 minutes, his hope fading like the sunlight on the planet. My phone started to vibrate in my pocket, and I pulled it out, expecting the caller to be Will, but instead a number I had never recognized before. I answered it, "Hello," hearing a chilling man's voice on the other line. "Where are the kids?" My heart sank, now panicked and nervous for who it was, replying, "What kids?" hoping the caller would give me more information. "The kids you are looking for, where are they?" The man continued on the other line, seeming more and more determined to get an answer. Dip then looked over at me asking, "Is everything okay?" I shook my head no, and he pulled the phone from my ear, demanding to the caller on the line, "Who is this?" Dip heard the same question I got, with Dip's response being, "I need a name from you before I tell you where the kids are at." The voice on the other side of the line was silent, and a second later the line was dead, and Dip handed me the phone back. "Call it a prank call, Nick, and forget about it," Dip said, now going back and being focused at the task on hand. "So how the night's going, Daryl?" Officer Grant asked the cashier of the gas station. "It's another slow night, can't say I don't mind it though." The cashier went then adding, "We have more of those smoked briskets out in the back. Feel free to help yourself." The officer then went to the back of the store, on the hunt for the meat Daryl had talked about. 3 rings of a bell then rang through the store. Daryl intrigued at the half-dozen children in front of him, dressed with masks of commonly known animals. He looked at them, The plastic faces of a lion, zebra, elephant, tiger, panda, and crocodile amusing him. "Halloween is not tonight, is it?" he said jokingly to them. One of them now stomped their foot, and the 4 kids ran through the aisles of the store grabbing food. The one who stomped now approached Daryl, a statue of confidence in the child as he approached before hearing on the kids yell, "Let me go." Daryl looked over to the now pleading child, who Officer Grant had grabbed. The other children then ran out of the gas station, Grant firmly holding the child and ripping the mask off, exposing the boy underneath. The confidence now disappeared from the being who had once approached Daryl, now standing in place in front of him, appearing as a scared kid not knowing what to do, while watching Grant continue to hold the stealing child hostage, rushing and following the others out of the gas station. The boy in Grant's arms continued to squirm, the bag he had taken off the shelf being crunched in his hand, and him yelling, "Let me go," and "Help," repeatedly, a desperate attempt to free himself. Within 5 minutes, another officer was at the scene. The boy sitting in the back of a police car, the officers discussing just outside the car on what to do with him. 20 minutes passed, and the boy realized they had made their decision, sending him to the local jail where he would presumably spend the night. There, Grant now looked at the boy behind the jail cell, a little shiver and frost in his breath leading him to offer the boy a blanket from which he accepted. Still, not a word was said from the boy, the officers not knowing what to think of the case. In the morning, me and Dip both sat in a room with that boy, still wrapped in the blanket he received the night before. "Why did you steal at those gas stations?" asked Dip to the child, now appearing more and more scared as the interrogation went on. "We were hungry," the boy replied quietly. "Who's we?" questioned Dip. "You know who we is, the people I was with," the boy replied. "And where can I find them?" Dip now asked, an annoyed look from the boy, knowing Dip was asking him to betray his friends. "I can get you something good to eat. You have a favorite restaurant here. I can get you a warm breakfast." Dip offered to him, which he reluctantly shook his head. "No." "Think about it," Dip said, before standing up and leaving the room, myself following him. 20 minutes passed until Dip believed he gave the kid enough time to think, walking in the room and asking him again, "Where are your friends at?" The kid didn't budge, now seeming more quiet than ever. Dip then gave him a hypothetical, "So you are homeless currently, and so are your friends. What if I make a deal that instead of juvie, you would all get adopted? Have homes to live in, you wouldn't have to steal again." This intrigued the boy, who replied, "But no one would want to adopt me. I am a thief." Dip shook his head. "As of now, yes, but you can change. You can redeem yourself, and when people know that they will want you in their life." The boy pondered the question, giving Dip a smile before giving in to his request. "They should just be around here," the officer said, the other replying, "This place has been abandoned for over 5 years, ever since it caught fire, right?" "Right," the first officer said. "But the boy said they camp in the basement. Must have been okay after the fire." They then started to walk in the house, their feet digging into some of the ash still laying on the ground after so many years. They started to move downstairs, hearing the footsteps of scattering children. They now reached the basement flooring, grabbing 2 of the kids but watching 7 others run out the back window into an open field. They continued to watch them, the children they held squirming like fish out of water to free themselves, the officers seeing other officers come out with their squad's car, circling and grabbing all of the kids into their custody as the children yelled, "Stop!" seeing their friends be taken. The 2 officers from the house then pushed their kids out of the house, with one officer making a comment. They both looked the same. Noticing the matching facial structure, gray eye color, and shorter brown hair of 2 children caught in the house. Within the hour, all 9 sat in the same cell together. The collections team dug through what they could find at the house. The animal face masks they wore, $250 in cash, and scraps of half-eaten food that would have been split among them. Dip now looked in the cell, seeing the one that they had originally taken in custody in the corner of the room, all the other children keeping their distance, knowing he must have snitched on them. He then looked at all of the children's faces, nearly identical, but with age gaps of at least 3 years consolidating between them. Your friend made a good choice. Once we are done with all of you, you all will be sent to a new permanent home. Meaning you don't have to steal anymore from people. That's progress. That's better than the life you had. Dip said to them, hoping to help the situation. He was met with silence from the kids, and a dreadful feeling came over him. Dip then got distracted, his phone vibrating in his pocket. I heard you found the children. A voice said, the same one which had called me a day earlier. You need to give me your name. This is a police officer order. Dip demanded to the person on the line. Tell me that you have the children and I will consider. The voice continued, almost taunting Dip. You tell me who you are or I will trace this number and bring you in myself. Dip replied. Be a pain. I can go verify my question myself. The man said on the other side of the line, then ending the call. One of the girls then came to the bars in front of Dip, getting his attention, for which he turned around. Bad man, she said to Dip, then turning around and joining the group. Do you know who he is? Dip asked, pleading with the girl, being met with only silence and blank stares from the other children. The man waited for dusk to try to break in, hoping that the end of the shift would give an advantage against the already tired guards. If only that man would give me the information I needed, the man said, referring to Dip. Now, with the small hand of the clock passing 9, he walked up besides the jail, going to a side door on the prison wall. He stuck a straightened-out paperclip and shoved it into the hole, twisting and pushing it in and out of the hole, before the lock eventually gave, letting him step inside the jail. He snuck around, now in an office or supply closet in the back. He pushed a door open, leading to the main hallway. He walked confidently down, but his heart dropped hearing a siren going on inside the jail walls. His presence must have set something off. The man retreated back into the supply closet, pulling the gun from his waist and waiting for anyone to try to find him. The kids could hear the sirens from the front office going off. A couple gunshots and yelling followed a minute later. Deep down, all of them knew their lives were in danger. The man they had originally tried to run from, now at the place they were trapped at. This thought split the group, with half being in fear, the other half knowing they had to get the group out of there. One of the boys then went to the bars, pulling at them, hoping to find the strength to increase the size of the small gap, at least enough to let some of the younger kids escape. His attempt was a failure as 2 others in the back rammed their sides into a wall, hoping to break it. Then the girl stood in the middle of the room, the one that had remained maskless when she ruined the tape of the gas station security cameras. Her brown eyes locked into the wall, following the brick lines and imagining them being split apart. The others stood back from the wall, seeing it be slowly pushed outward. The girl now lifted her hand, focusing on the wall with her eyes closed, creating a crack 2 feet wide, enough to let the kids pass through. All of the kids then ran off the property lines of the jail, retreating to the nearby wood line and disappearing into the night. One of the officers then entered the once full cell, finding nothing of their existence beside the broken cement and dust the girl had caused. The local police officers spent the next 7 days looking for children in the area, with no sight of them ever being found. The man who had originally broken into the jail was shot dead while hiding behind a chair. The gun he had in his possession stolen from an armory in California 9 months ago. Along with this, the man's identity remained a mystery, with no trace of fingerprint or blood sequence showing in any government database. To add to the mystery, the blood from one of the children booked also didn't match with any government identification method, and none of the booked children fingerprints matched. It's as if they never existed. Dip told me as I read the forensic report to myself. I nodded to him, reading more information on where the samples were tested and by who, both credible sources. You want to see something interesting? I turned to Dip, sliding 2 pictures of DNA strands to me. The one on the left is the man that broke in. The other is the original child that officer took in, the one that gave us the other children. Their DNA is almost identical, comparable up to 93%. I asked Dip, which means what? Meaning that these kids weren't given this DNA naturally. It had to have been modified, the first step in human gene modification. Sheesh, Krell, this job sounds easy. Like it's human, they haven't even colonized their own moon yet. I can go in there, eliminate what I need, and leave. Easy as that. Perry told the leading commander of Trothan, Commander Krell Gregorts, who was sitting in front of the small, killing machine young adult known as Perry from the Haggett species. I don't want you to cause harm to these humans. It's not their fault these eggs have landed on their planet. Go there, find the eggs, and eliminate any chance of them hatching. Krell now told Perry, slowly losing his temper due to the hothead and cockiness of Perry's personality. Perry smiled, almost realizing the leading commander was disliking him more and more as the time went on, making a comment to really get under his skin. You know I hate that you got the Medal of Peace for stopping the war between the Pelota planets. If it was me, I would have dropped 2 vertibombs into their atmosphere, ignite their air into flames, watch both planets burn with nothing they can do about it. Perry now started laughing, thinking of how everyone would instantly start to burn, slowly and viciously. Quiet, you imbecile. Krell now yelled at Perry, standing up over him after hearing the insensitive comment, his 8-foot heavy-built body creating a shadow over the 5-foot standing Perry. You know, I miss you. I remember when you started the war in Jasiva. You killed so many people in every town you were sent to. The troops, sure, kill them. But you didn't show the Jatsiva beings in those towns any peace. You basically shot them all, burned the towns and left, like my pet Floor taking a shit on the floor and leaving. That was you. That's you. I miss that, Krell. I want him back. I want to be what you were. Perry said, smiling, his grin reaching both ends of his face, hoping he finally got around to Krell's good side. I'll be honest with you, Perry, Krell went, his tone being bleak and serious, matching his desert-bleached skin and square-shaped head. You applied being a part of my army when you had just passed introductory schooling. You didn't get in because you had more fights in your school than any other student in the school's 100-year history. You also didn't pass almost any of your classes. With the some that you did pass, you cheated through. Seriously, Perry, who threatens to skin a teacher's pet in order to pass a class. Then you left Trothan, spent 3 years doing tasks for God knows who, but ended up killing the surrounding members and leaders of the Warda Group, ending their dictatorship on the SADA system. And because of that, I thought you changed, that you moved on from your reckless, violent antics, and instead focused on stopping bad people, actual bad people. So that's why I called you here, to do a simple job, one you are more than capable of doing. But no, I can see that you are still the same violent animal that should be put down. And I can't be the one who does it since so many people praise you for what you did for Sata. But I swear, if I could, I would put a bullet right through your blue head. Perry stood back from Krell, a smile as he went through what he had heard from the commanding general, himself nodding joyfully as he started realizing why Krell had originally called him. Do you want to kill me, Krelly? Here, do it then, Perry said arrogantly, bringing the silver pistol from his hip and placing it on the table, the barrel of the gun facing him. Come on, Krelly. An older version of yourself would know this is a good idea. Kill the violent animal. Put it down. He started to say, nearly singing to the words. Stop being a fool, Krell said, twisting the gun's barrel away from Perry to the side and sliding the gun closer to him. You can't kill me. Then Krell can you. You need me to do your dirty work because the moment it goes dirty, you can blame it on my character. I'm the perfect fall guy, huh? I'm okay with that, though, but this fall guy isn't cheap. 3 million units paid now to me. Krell almost laughed at the number Perry suggested, knowing how ridiculous it is. That figure could get me 3 falls guys just like you. Krell replied to Perry. Perry smiled. But I'm the one you called for this job. If you want to do it cheaper, then go ahead. But I can't guarantee you would be satisfied with the results. Krell sat back in his chair, looking at Perry's face, his tentacles in the back of his head rising slightly, then lowering themselves in a sway motion. 500,000 units now. 1 million units when you complete the job. Krell now replied to Perry upon thinking it over, knowing it was almost a guarantee that Perry would be the only hireable asset to do this job correctly. You know it would suck if those eggs hatched because no one could do this job. Like those animals ripped up the Olega system within what? A month. 5 billion different life forms wiped out, and now you have those creatures being cannibalistic to each other trapped in that system. I mean, thank God there's a protective measure around the planet now, one stopping those things from spreading. How much is that costing you guys, by the way? I'm assuming more than 1 million units. Would be a shame if that same thing happened to Earth. Perry went, addressing the harsh realities of it to Krell. Fine. 1 million units now, 2 million units when you return with the eggs destroyed. Krell replied, a speedy Perry response relaying the message, 2.5 million upon my return. I think this conversation is making my rate go up. Krell growled at Perry, his eyes crunched, peering into the soul of the cocky bastard that stood in front of him. He nodded slightly, telling Perry they had a deal, adding, the asteroid landed about a month ago in a forest. Intel says a group of young humans found it while hiding in the woods. Then a group of more elite and heavily equipped humans came and took the eggs from them. We believe these elite humans were the military, delivering the eggs to a base 250 miles away. There they are being stored. Where exactly is unknown. I just need you to find a way in, sneakily, without any deaths, and eliminate each egg. Can you do that, Perry? Perry smiled. You wouldn't have called me if I couldn't do it, Krelly. Now standing up and skipping out of the office, turning around to Krell one more time. But if things do go bad, I'll still make sure the mission's a success, he said, whipping out both his pistols and firing at Krell, both shots hovering an inch above his left and right shoulder, drilling into the wall behind him. Perry! Krell screamed at the careless and foolish bastard, the closing door blocking the sound from Perry already in the hallway. Perry entered Earth atmosphere within 6 hours of the conversation. His older model, Photon 11, which was the primary attack cruiser for space battles in the Tovan War 100 years ago, still knew enough to evade any detection from Earth's latest technology. Perry now landed the Photon in the grass plains sat next to the dense forest from which the asteroid had landed. The local time was around 3 a.m., so no human contact was made with Perry as he got out. Perry then walked the trail, using a tracking technology to find the crashed rock. He now stood in front of it, peering at the silver rock with black streaks running across it, with holes along the outside from where the eggs he had been sent for were set. 3, 4, 5, 6. Perry counted to himself, knowing that was the number he was now looking for. Then a growl came from behind, and Perry looked behind him. The open blackness of the woods was the only view he had as he scanned his surroundings. A branch breaking beside him now pointed him to his left, holding the pistol in its holster. A creature now attacked, Perry staring at the sharp row of teeth and the giant claws coming from the paw of the creature. Perry defended himself, a quick zip sound coming from his pistol, the red bolt shooting through the bear's head, the creature collapsing to the ground without another movement. Weak beast, Perry muttered, looking at the biology of the creature, stroking its fur. Perry then started to head back for his ship. smiling over first successful part of the mission for which he had just completed. Perry now took his photon ship in the air, scorching the prairie ground below him as he raced off into the night, a 30-minute flight layer as he started his descent to his next location. He looked at the building from over 1,000 meters away, the perimeter being secured with a wall and armed guards every 100 feet. "Looks like a fun challenge," Perry said to himself, pondering on how he would get inside. He then started to put together a plan to infiltrate the base, which involved flying in, hiding, and sneaking into the building by taking one of the guards. He hopped into his ship, setting the autopilot to return in his secret secluded location upon dropping him off, now hovering and slowly going toward the base at 100 miles per hour. He quickly activated the autopilot, and upon being directly above the secure facility, Perry jumped down, knowing that his fun would just begin. He landed on the roof of the building, using the thrusters at the bottom of his feet to stick the landing softly, avoiding alerting anyone to his whereabouts. He then managed to slip through a gate in the wall, scaling down the ladder and successfully entering the building without being noticed. Perry then entered the room he was in, filled with autonomous computers and pipes being filled and pushed with water. He looked around. Another human not in the room with it, and he found a door leading out. He opened it, the exiting room being brighter than the previous, as it was now filled with a long table with chairs running the sides. He went through the room, exiting and entering a hallway, now walking down, exploring the building while keeping an eye out for any eggs that could be around. He strolled for a few minutes before an alarm started to ring above him, and the sound of footsteps hitting the ground and coming closer put a smile on his face. "Like I told Krell, I'm the fall guy," Perry said, twirling the 2 pistols in his hand. Then he saw a soldier turn the corner of the hallway, able to get a quick glance at Perry before the alien shot him, the red laser bolt creating a hole in his head. 2 other men then turned the corner, their shots being closer to Perry, who rolled to the left, then firing 2 return shots, killing both men. Perry retreated down the hallway, the sound of more footsteps coming, an eagerness filling him to kill them all. "Will," I yelled up to him impatiently and annoyed given the circumstances of the situation. I didn't hear a reply from him as I walked up the stairs, seeing him in his own room we had set up for him. He was on his video game console, looking to be starting a level over. "I need to go to the station. Something is being attacked, and the chief wants us there and ready to go in case something happens," I said to him hastily. "Smoke World?" he remarked. "Not that I can think of, at least nothing me or Dip should have done," I said, fearful that it could be. Will nodded, and I closed the door, rushing out the house. Will then put down his video game as soon as he heard the front door close. "Let me try again," he said, the voice of Alos reaching him. "And focus. I need to be able to see it." Will closed his eyes, focusing on the only thought Alos wished for. During this, he could feel the coldness of a sweat drip come down his neck, then the light coming in front of him, a small gray and gold portal opening in front of him. Alos could see it on the other side, his satisfaction peeking from the hours and days they have tried for this exact moment. He tossed the object through, Will opening his eyes and seeing it lay on the ground in front of him, the portal now being closed due to the lack of focus. But Alos and Will both agreed that was an afterthought, the idea of what was now on Earth being much more valuable. Will stared at this new object, nearly all black in a small oval shape, not much bigger than a dollar bill. A smile appeared over Will as it started to move, then a moment later taking flight. He watched it circle around the room, now lighting itself in a neon blue color. Will pulled out his hand, the creature gently landing on it as he stared at it in astonishment. "Die, you human garbage!" Perry yelled, shooting the already deceased corpse in front of him 3 more times, with each shot ringing in the maze of hallways he had found himself in. Now he could hear more footsteps coming for him, himself thinking the armed guards wanted revenge for the dozens of bodies that were now killed by him. He smirked at this thought, now running the opposite direction of them, entering a stairwell and descending lower into the earth. He now entered another floor, then turning a corner and looking down the barrel of troopers waiting for him. He ducked back, barely missing the barrage of shots that followed, striking through the wall that he once stood before. Perry now returned fire, striking 2 of the guards in the head, now rolling out into the hallway, spreading and firing down the hallway, wiping out the old threat. He continued down the hall, firing one last shot as he passed a guard moaning on the floor in pain, ending it. "Nice to see something new," Perry said, gazing upon the gigantic metal doors locked shut in front of him, much different than the casual office layout of the government building. He looked for a way to unlock it, shooting the keypad, making the gate open as he walked inside. There he found a lab, one with microscopes and test valves of different colors. He passed silver-gray tables of stainless steel and research papers thumbtacked to boards. He left one part of the lab to go to the next, now seeing different animal species on the wall. In this room, he saw the stretched, standing body of a human figure whose skin appeared as oak wood. He noticed that it was much longer than any other human he encountered, its head nearly touching the 15-foot ceiling, and its hand only have 2 finger-like claws instead of the 5 fingers on a human. He passed on from this display, now looking at curled-up skin of a reptile, appearing as a large 20-foot snake, made to be as white as the first snow of winter. Finally, only display were 2 large wings which were honeycomb in color, and transparent enough for Perry to see the screws that kept them hung onto the wall. Perry now looked around the room again, some of these deceased beings reminding him of others from planets, while some having no relation in Perry's mind. He now walked to the next room, finally seeing what he was after in a glass vase, the eggs being supported in a liquid. He aimed his pistol, shattering the glass and letting the eggs drop on the floor as he shot the first one. He then pointed his pistol at the remaining, counting as he shot each one. He now looked puzzled, circling the vase and avoiding the shards of glass while carefully counting each egg that was inside. He now backed away, moving to the next room and not finding the last missing egg, but instead a scientist hiding behind a desk. Perry pushed his gun into him, leading the scientist into the room and yelling at him, "Where is the 6th egg?" "What 6th egg?" The scientist went in a pleading voice to Perry. "You dumb shit can't count. The meteor had 6 eggs. Your men took 6 eggs. Where's the 6th egg?" Perry yelled at him, not having it with the man. "You can check the logs. We found 5 in the woods, only 5. The man now said, nearly sobbing. Perry then looked away from the man, the sound of footsteps coming toward him, and knowing there wasn't another room for him to escape to. He pushed the scientist back, firing a lasting blow into the scientist's heart before moving to the next room, shooting the grate of an air duct and squeezing in. 30 minutes later, Perry returned to where he was at originally, his ship still undetected from when he had last left it. He entered, turning on the mic and connecting out to space. "We have an issue. The humans only took 5 of the eggs. Those 5 are destroyed, but there is 1 left," Perry said. "I thought you told me you were the only one who could do this mission. Perry, I hope you don't plan to return until that egg is found and destroyed, no matter the cost," Krell said to him on the other line. "It will get done. I have a hunch that the people who found it originally have an idea on where it is, and I know how to get information out of these people. They beg if you hurt them the slightest." Perry continued, ending his call. 55 people were killed by this thing. We don't know what it is, just that it entered our base and went full-on cowboy massacre. A voice told Dr. Isaac Latham. "And we don't know what it is, so he can't be indicted now that he was involved," Latham said. "It doesn't matter. What things does Dip not tell us? Who knows how many more friends he has, just like Alos," the voice continued. "We can't prove any." Latham went before being abruptly interrupted. "Silence, we just need to end this. Find a will to end Dip, even if that means taking his life." "Oh, you look amazing tonight, Sarah." James went, sipping from the red velvet wine he had gotten for their table, set between the well-dressed James in a black and white tuxedo, his date Sarah in a dark green dress curving on her figure. Sarah smiled, her cheeks now a brighter blush red as she laid her gentle fingers on James' masculine and worn hands, knowing he worked and saved money for a date like this. "You have really made these past 6 months feel like days," she said to him softly, now leaning in and resting her lips against his cheek, romanticizing the night even more. James now put his forearm up, blocking the car's bright headlamps from entering his eyes as he looked out the window perpendicular to them, a new luxury car driving away. "I wish they had sat us somewhere different or didn't build a restaurant like this on such a busy street," James complained, thinking of the other 2 cars from the same night. "It's fine. When we get home, it will be nice and dark. I'm sure you'll enjoy that much better." Finishing her statement with a wink, instantly improving James's mood. He now peered outside to the streets, a man catching his eye, holding a camera framed in on himself and Sarah. "What are you looking at?" Sarah asked James's wandering eyes, looking out the window herself. "A man's out there taking photos. Has to be some sort of creep," James said, acting defensively for his girlfriend. "Oh, please. This place opened a week ago. Could be a journalist writing an article about it and want to get 2 young people enjoying a fancy dinner. I don't mind. I think we look great." Sarah said to James, hoping it would change his mind and he would go back to dinner. "I still don't like it. I'm going to have someone take care of it," James said, calling a waiter over to him, a displeased Sarah reluctant to say anything knowing he had already made up his mind. "There's a man outside taking photos of us. I want him gone," James demanded to the waiter who had rushed over, now nodding and leaving the table to do the task. James went back and focused on his dinner with Sarah, starting a conversation about the recent construction project himself and his company had completed. The only time James stopped talking about this project was to tell Sarah to look out the window, saying, "They are telling that guy to leave now." They continued to watch, the photographer now walking down the street away from the building as the 2 waiters walked back inside the restaurant. 30 minutes passed before the waiter spoke to James and Sarah again, this time asking, "How did all of the food taste?" James looked down upon his own plate, which once held a 16-ounce steak, and then to Sarah, who had gotten slices of salmon, noting that both plates were nearly empty. "I think both of us had a fine meal," James replied to the waiter who said, "That's wonderful. No rush in paying," now handing them the check. James pulled out his credit card and handed it over to him. 25% tip for yourself if you don't mind adding it," he added. The waiter nodded and left the table. "You still ready for tonight?" Sarah asked James, as James got distracted by the bright lights coming out the window beside them. He looked over now with his full attention, seeing the headlights of the car approach the stop sign that was across the street from the restaurant. But something was different. The car was still speeding as it approached, as if it didn't see the stop sign. A crash then came from the wall as the glass shattered onto the ground when the car drove through the building. His table then got knocked over and he hit the ground, his suit now ripped from the shards of glass on the ground. He looked up, the car now twisted around a support beam in the restaurant, now looking desperately for Sarah. He looked ahead of him, expecting her to still be sitting in the chair in front of him, like how she was 30 seconds ago. His heart started to race when she was gone, looking over and seeing a blood streak the carpet tile below where she would have sat. His eyes started to tear when he had realized what had happened. He followed the blood trail across the room into the crashed car, seeing the ripped-apart green dress lay wrapped around the tire of the car. He ran to the car, now kneeling down, pulling at her body, which was pinned down, but feeling nothing give back as he started to pull against her, as if it was a rope tied to a pipe. He dropped her arm, nothing holding it up as it hit the ground. James got up and tried walking away, his knees feeling heavy as he dropped in Sarah's own blood, now screaming in agony. Me and Dip arrived at the scene around 10:40. By that time, all occupants had cleared the restaurant, including James, who was sent to a local hospital for trauma testing, and Sarah, whose body had been uncovered by a group of 5 men lifting the vehicle off her, moved to the morgue already. The scene looked like any car accident, with the car slowly being pulled out from a pin position caused by the pole it had wrapped itself around, stopping it from crashing into more diners. The once colorful and softly lit room felt more darker now, with some of the lights flickering inside as we completed our investigation. "We gotta go," Dip called to me, heading out the hole in the wall caused by the ramming vehicle. When Dip realized I was following him, he started, "Our suspect is taken to the local jail for the night before being taken to the state prison due to housing issues. From what I gathered, he claims the brakes on his vehicle gave out and that he tried to avoid the crash. But he drove straight into the building. He could have tried to avoid it, but he hit the victim straight on," I said to Dip, drilling a hole into the story that he had already seen. "Exactly why we are going to go talk to him. Make this guy's night a little bit longer, especially considering he committed vehicular manslaughter," Dip replied, stepping to the driver's seat of the squad car. "So walk me through the night," Dip told him, a tired and worn middle-aged man with a receding hairline, as he cupped his hands into his face. "I am so tired of this. I was driving on 20th Street. I wasn't impaired by any drugs or alcohol, and my mind was clear of anything that could distract me. I then saw the stop sign coming up. I pushed on my brake and it wouldn't go. I tried again, trying to push the brake through the flooring of my car, but it didn't budge. By this time, I looked up, crashed through the wall, tried moving out of the way of the couple, but sadly hit one. She got caught under the car. I felt the body roll under, then the car swerve and stop as it collided with the beam. I then woke up after hitting my head, now being taken here and repeating this story for what seems like the 100th time tonight." He went, now laying back and staring at me and Dip, almost with begging eyes to leave him alone. "Did you know the victim? The man or the woman?" Dip asked. The man shook his head. "Never even seen them before. The guy seemed like he knew me, though, at least from what he said to me. Maybe it was his own rage. Such a terrible accident this all is." "Why didn't you try to swerve away and onto the other street before hitting the restaurant? I mean, you were at a T-section. You could have gotten the car to another lane." Dip continued, not full convinced it was such an accident. "I could have, and probably should have," he went solemnly. "Truth is, I was focused on getting the car to brake. Then when I figured out it wasn't going to work, I was already feet away from colliding with the restaurant." I looked over at Dip, who reacted to his response with silence and maybe a belief that this was all just an accident. "Did you ever come into contact with someone working for a paper or blog before this crash? Or someone with a camera?" I asked the man, who opened his eyes and rewound the question in his head again to make sure he heard me correctly. "No," he said innocently, maybe a bit surprised by the question, adding, "First time someone asked me that all night." "Thank you for your time," Dip said to him, leaving, me following out of the room and leaving the interrogee in the cell room by himself. "Why did you ask that question?" Dip asked me. "The transcripts. James talked about another man who could be behind it, who was taking photos of the restaurant right before the crash. No one is taking it seriously, but I wanted to see if it caused a panic or pause in his response." I replied to him. "Good police work," Dip said, now yawning, signaling we had called it for the night. "Good morning, Blake," Jenny said, dropping the uncooked egg yolk into the frying pan, the sizzle being heard from across the kitchen. "It's not a good morning," he said back. "Why's that?" Jenny probed him. "Your pictures didn't come out that well." "Yeah," Blake said. "I don't think anyone is going to want them." Jenny laughed, still facing her pot as she started to break the yolk. "Of course someone is going to want them. You were a hired photographer for 10 years. You were just having a bump in the road, that's all." Blake replied to her statement in a near hopeless tone. "I don't think this is just a bump in the road." "Oh, sure it is. Go get your camera. Let me see the photos you took last night," Jenny said encouragingly. No! Blake yelled out, causing Jenny to turn around to the storming figure of Blake leaving the room. She listened for him, calling, "Come back for breakfast, son." And then hearing the front door open and slam shut. Pete, who was Jenny's husband now, walked into the room. Hopefully he doesn't drive anywhere. Someone just rammed into the new restaurant they put up a couple weeks ago, blaming it on bad brakes and bad luck. The air outside was fresh for Blake's breath, almost soothing as his mind spun for how bad his life was unraveling. He started down the trail about 5 minutes ago, a small 3-mile loop around a lake to help free his mind of any negative thoughts that were occurring, which there were many. Many of these thoughts were about how to end this curse. Nearly 3 deaths, 2 in his old town from where he had spent nearly 15 years of his life, working for a newspaper company, and now the one from last night. His thoughts kept going, only being interrupted by the splashing of water. He looked over, a group of older children playing along the pebbled beach of the lake. He watched them for a few minutes, feeling his body start to compel to a familiar need. He tried to resist it, feeling his hand dig into this back jean pocket, pulling out a small camera. He aimed it at the group of boys, straining to not take the photo, his heart dropping as he lost control of his finger, the camera lighting a bright flash and capturing the playing boys. The boys looked over to him, one of them approaching Blake yelling, "Get out of here, creep!" Blake ran off, knowing that he had taken a full picture of them, knowing the worst was soon to come. Blake ran away from the park, going to the local print shop in town, the dark, dim red lights being a familiar greeting place for him. He went in the back, an older woman already soaking her photos in the solution to pull the colors in the photo. He stood beside her, hooking up the camera to a machine and printing it in black and white, now placing it into the tub. She looked over, smiling at the photo, saying, "They look like they are having fun." "I'm sure they were," Blake said to her, noticing the rose flowering as it swayed back and forth in her own tub. "These were taken from my garden. First year this rose bush has really blossomed, hoping it lasts for many more years," she said, noticing Blake's wandering eyes. "I'm sure it will," he said, now focused back on finishing his photo. 10 minutes passed before all the color would appear in the photo, the woman now finishing a different photo of a lily plant, looking at Blake's finished photo to pass the time. "Seems like a good group of kids," she said, Blake nodding and leaving the store. "Hey, Blake, do you want to come down for dinner? The food is going to get cold," Jenny called up, hopeful to see Blake, who had escaped into the spare bedroom they had converted from a small office months ago. Blake stayed silent, not wanting anything to do with the outside world, scared of what was going to happen if he revealed himself. "Give it up, he'll get hungry eventually, and that's when he will come down." Pete called from the living room, his steak and fries still steaming from when they were on the grill as he propped his head up, waiting for the routine 7 o'clock news broadcast to start. Jenny moved back to the kitchen, grabbing her plate from where she had just set it, the smell of the food greeting her when she had just entered the room moments before. She walked over to the living room, claiming the chair that which she spent most nights in, watching as Pete turned up the broadcast to hear the local story. "Tragedy at the park today." The announcer went, Jenny already feeling an upset stomach, waiting for the depressing news. A young man was found in the Skyview Lake today. Authorities believe he drowned to death and suspect no foul play in what had happened. The wake is prepared for tomorrow evening at City Hall. Then the funeral will the following Saturday morning. In happier news, a rare bird has been found again where it was once believed to be extinct. "Awful, just awful," Jenny said, shaking her head at the news. "It really is. How about we watch something else?" Pete said, changing it to a movie, hoping to get Jenny in a better mood. "I know that boy," Gava said, her husband looking at her on the couch with slight disbelief. "A man soaked photos at the local print shop today. They were boys playing at the lake, and that boy was one of them." "Gava, that's crazy. The odds of you seeing that boy, then him dying the same day, is very unlikely to happen." The husband went, hoping to end it with that. No, I promise I know his face. Here, let me call about this. Gava went, already dialing into the phone, the husband not being able to stop her as the dispatcher questioned her. So, Miss Anderson, how did you see this boy? Dip asked her, sitting on a chair from the kitchen he had brought over while Mr. and Mrs. Anderson sat side by side on the couch. Gava, call me Gava, she said, adding. There was a man at the print shop. He was dipping his photos as I was doing mine, my rose plants. I looked over at his photos and it had a group of boys with the lake behind it. And one of the boys, well, his face looked almost identical to the one I saw on the TV, the story where the boy drowned. Okay, and the man, who brought in these photos? Dip asked her. Just a regular middle-aged man, dressed in Sunday church clothes. Seemed to be upset, like he was having a bad day, someone spilled his coffee type of mood. And he was quiet, wouldn't talk about his photos for the life of him. Okay, and anything else you remember of this man? He had a camera, a really nice camera too. One you see those photographers that work for the newspaper use. It had a long zoom tunnel, and all the buttons on it made it look really fancy and expensive. Gava went, her husband in near disbelief that the officers were being so patient with her. What are they going to do, Gava? Arrest a man for taking a photo? The husband commented, his tone seemingly over the entire situation. This is good information, Mr. Anderson. Dip went now looking at Gava. Thank you for your help, and we will be sure to use this to help our case. For now, we do have to go. We don't want to take any more of your time. Gava smiled. Thank you for listening. Then walking us to the door, making sure we got in our car okay. 2 deaths in the matter of 2 days. Both freak accidents. One single thing bringing them together. A camera, Dip said. But it's a camera. How can that even be possible? Plus, what does the photographer gain from all of this? It seems he took regular photos, not even trying to get a first shot of the story that would come out of it. I argued to Dip. We've seen stranger things, Nick, so let's keep an open mind. Dip said, now driving off into the night. A drop of sweat ripped down Blake's forehead, laying on the pillow which had now become a pool. He moved his head, his checking now dipping into the puddle, slowly waking him up. In his mind now, he could see himself, almost in a third-person perspective. A flashback of himself taking photos for a local fair, back when he first got hired by the Douglas newspaper nearly 9 years ago. I miss it, he muttered to himself softly, enough to be mistaken for the squeak of a field mouse. He now stepped out of bed, the digital clock on his bed reading 2:42 a.m., with the neon green glow illuminating the black numbers. He walked out of his room, almost in a trance, now walking outside the house undetected, his camera in hand. He started to walk down the street, the silence of night almost oozing himself to sleep, enough to end his sleepwalk phase. He awoke the next morning at 6 a.m. without a memory of how Me managed to walk back home. A even stranger feeling of how he was able to put himself under the covers without any memory of it. He looked on his bedside table. The camera sat there with the lens cap nowhere in sight. A mismatch of himself knowing he had put it back in its case the previous night. A thought came to him, asking himself if he had imagined leaving the house last night at all, only knowing a sure way to know. He brought the camera over his face, the small 3-inch wide LCD screen flashing as he held the power button, the menu popping up with a timestamp of 3:23 for the last photo taken. He opened the folder, seeing a home he recognized as Frank and Hannah Trelent home, a family friend who lived down the street who routinely went to church with his family as he grew up. He scrolled through the photographs, counting a total of 7 pictures, with each photo holding the house as the main subject, only illuminated by the sole street lamp that laid outside of the frame to the right. He set the camera down, knowing he wasn't dreaming when he took the photos, deleting them hoping that would break the curse. Blake slept for another 4 hours, only strolling out of bed when the light from his window had risen enough to cover his eyes. He walked downstairs, seeing his mother Jenny in her chair, tears in her eyes. She looked up to him, then getting out of her chair and walking over to him, wrapping her arms as if she had to secure him. The Trailant family passed away last night. She went to him, Blake stepping out of her security and asking flabbergasted, what happened? Jenny began to spoke, more and more tears coming to her as she repeated what she had heard from officers that morning. Their electrical wires caught fire. It started to burn the downstairs of the house, working its way up. They were left stranded in their bedroom upstairs, no possibility of getting out. Blake stepped back, falling against the couch, now seated upright on the floor, gripping the carpet as if his hands were the only thing he had control of. This isn't right. They were good people. Blake stuttered to say, himself panting more and more as he thought about the last moments of their life. It's not fair. They didn't deserve to be taken like that, Blake yelled out, Jenny stepping down beside her son, trying to comfort him in his own sad rage. I know, baby, awful, awful thing, she said soothingly. A week passed, but for what it was worth, felt like months to Blake, who barely spoke a word to anyone. Even at the funeral, Blake couldn't say goodbye to the closed caskets, knowing he played a part in the Trailant family being there. He felt tremendous guilt for what he had done, and walked as if the guilt had formed to lead shackles around his feet, limiting his movement, only allowing his body to sulk slowly around. His urges also came in great effort, with the idea of taking a photo repeating itself in his head, almost as if he was cursed. And boy, did Blake truly think he was cursed, a curse he knew would never go away. Just patrol today, I asked Dip, preparing myself for the long day as the cases seemed to wrap themselves up. The car crash was due to faulty brakes, and Sarah's tragic death was ruled an accident, leading to no arrests to be made. The drowning incident was also ruled an accident, with an autopsy proving the child suffered what seemed to be a late stroke in the water, causing him to stop swimming. However, I got a feeling that Dip felt that something was bigger than just these accidental cases, and to be truthful with myself, I thought the same. A cameraman was supposedly involved when both misfortunes took place. I remember Dip saying not long after both cases had first been resolved to accidental. It is just too big of a coincidence. Him telling me, trying to convince me of something I already knew to be true. And so there we were, together in a car watching traffic pass by, our own minds distracted by what most officers had already put in the past. Hey, Dip, we have a situation, the dispatch officer Devon said on the radio. What's up? Dip responded to him, assuming that it would be a regular call-out. We have a situation in the park. A man is there, says he's going to do something awful. He went to me and Dip, a sense of confusion coming over me as I wondered what it could be about. Dip pulled out onto the road, speeding toward the park as Devon continued. He didn't give us much details, just to send someone to stop him. Could be a physic breakdown, so other officers will be on their way, but you two should be first on site. The radio now cut out, and we arrived to the park 4 minutes later, me and Dip scanning the area for what could be happening. In the park, we saw usual things, nothing alerting us as we wandered our eyes. A group of kids playing frisbee, a couple riding the bikes on the trail that ran through. There, Dip now said, pointing to the other side of the park, a family all dressed up, positioned behind a fruit tree. We started to run over to the family, seeing a man walk back and forth from the family and a camera set up on a tripod. Put your hands up, Dip yelled across the field, the photographer looking over at us, then rushing to the camera, zoomed in on the family. The family members looked at us confused as we ran, now upon reaching the cameraman and confronting him. He pulled back from us, looking at us with a shine in his eyes, the remaining tears he had shed being visible. He looked at us and then to the family, turning the camera on himself, the flash glistening in the water lines which swayed like a river down his cheek. He dropped the camera after, itself shattering on the ground with thousands of small pieces of glass being scattered from the lens. "What are you doing to my son?" The mother of the family yelled to us. They need to take me. The photographer yelled to her, Dip walking over and cuffing the man. He is just in our custody for his own safety. Dip said to the family, walking the man back to the police car, leaving the family behind. I tried my best to control it. The photographer confessed, a deep sigh of relief exhausting from him as we pulled out of the park. I don't know what caused it, but I couldn't let it hurt them or anyone else. He continued in the back. We will get you taken care of. All of our questions will be answered in time. Dip said, looking in the mirror to the photographer who looked as if his soul already had left his body, just waiting for his time. I remember the first time I fell in love with it. My parents took me and my brother to the ocean. I had just gotten my first camera as a child. I must have taken 100 photos of the waves as they came in. A moment of time I captured, with the ability to relive the moment over and over again. He sighed, now closing his eyes, my body turning sideways as a loud crash came from behind me. At the park, the mother stood there in shock, trying to figure out what had just happened. The father had already folded up the tripod as his wife picked up the camera, seeing that the back LCD panel was still intact. She clicked a few buttons, seeing her son's face on the screen. A soft smile in that had been absent the past days, remembering him taking the photo right before the damn police took her son away. She then moved to the next photo, another photo of her son, and the next the same thing. He didn't get a photo of us, she exclaimed to her husband, an annoyed sigh in the effort of all the work she had put in to dress herself and husband up for the family photo. It will be fine, the husband said, replying to her. Blake was pronounced dead on arrival from when he got to the hospital. Dip was kept overnight with some bruising in his chest, while I got away with a small cut on my arm from a shard of glass from the backseat window. I was told it was a miracle that we weren't affected worse by the semi that had collided with us, taking in the fact that most of Dip's squad car looked as if it had been compressed in a junkyard. A couple days later, Dip took time off, decided to take a vacation to the beach, watching the waves go in and out without a care in the world, and not a photo to prove the moment ever existed. Dip watched the ocean waves come in from afar, feeling the salty mist of the ocean stick to his face even as he laid on the beach 200 meters away from the water's edge. His mind was deep in thought. How much everything around him actually mattered. He saw himself as the sand on the edge of the water, constantly being shifted by the incoming and outcoming tides, never being in full control of himself. You know, my family would make it a monthly occurrence to drive out here and spend a day on the beach. My dad thought it would make us appreciate nature more, maybe show us to appreciate what we have compared to those who have never had an opportunity to step on the sandy shores at least once. A voice stated behind Dip, startling him, and he turned his head, now seeing Dr. Latham walk toward him with a smile. He now reached Dip, bending down and sticking the jeans he had on onto the sand beside him. I miss those times. You know they passed nearly 5 years ago. Car accident, a terrible one. A deer pulled out in front of them. My father swerved trying not to hit it and went over a guardrail, fell off a cliff. Still remember it like yesterday, that and the memories on these beaches. Sometimes I ask myself if we are truly here in the present moment for anything extradentary, or if our lives are so random that the world wouldn't change at all if we vanished or not. I like to think that our lives aren't random, that my parents' lives weren't. The church they volunteered at definitely didn't think their lives were random. I also don't think your life is random, Dip. What are you going on about Latham? Dip asked the philosophical-speaking Latham, which was an uncommon way of speaking for him, intriguing his mind. I'm talking about your death, Dip, what that will mean to everyone, including your partner. Latham now spoke, more clearly in a way Dip knew what he was insinuating. Is that a threat, Latham? Dip sternly spoke to him, standing up away from the sand and facing Latham, holding his pistol on the side of his hip. I was told to do this, Dip. You are a dangerous man. Also, a man who knows many dangerous creatures this government has no control over, or barely any knowledge about. You can't expect no one to notice and no consequences to happen to you because of these facts. Latham went, calmly threading Dip, who was nervous of what was going on, figuring out why Latham was here. Dip now unclipped his pistol, grabbing the handle of his gun and rising it out. Don't lift that gun in the air or point it at me. My bullet will reach your heart before your mind even begins the thought of pulling the trigger on me. Latham said, still peacefully watching the waves splashing the beach in front of him, noticing a small storm up out in sea. Dip now looked around, the cliffs and rock formations adjacent to the beach being a perfect place for a man to get an open shot on him, without even the chance of Dip realizing where the shooter was at. Why haven't you killed me yet? Isn't that the plan here today, to kill me? Dip went, his breaths quickening, knowing they may be his few last breaths. Well, yes, Dip. Sadly, this day could be the last day you live. I want you to know it wasn't my decision. Latham went, now fixing his focus on Dip. Why, Latham, we've known each other for years. We went to school together. This is how you want to end me. Who is putting you up to this? A higher up in the department. He never gave me his name, just an order over the phone, threatening me if I didn't do it. Now say goodbye, Dip. I can't. I don't want to. Please don't do this. Dip pleaded with him, the horror as he heard the distant shot of a rifle going off, the ocean waves finally ceasing to exist for Dip. Alos, do you see it? Will asked him, his communication with him going in and out as he focused on expanding the portal that he hoped was now in front of him. Yes, my friend, keep growing it, and within a few minutes I will make it back to you. Alos responded to him, looking at the small, glowing white and black smoke portal in front of him, which Will had expanded to the size of a basketball. I don't know if I can keep it up. This hurts my head, my arm. Everything is burning in me. Will exclaimed, his muscles tightening and constricting himself as he sat upright on the ground, lifting his arm in front of him and stretching his fingers as if they were in a catcher's mitt. You have to. You need to do this. Work for another 3 minutes. Alos urged him, knowing the result if he failed, his fate being stuck longer in the world for which he had nothing. I'm working on it, Will said, straining his fingers and widening the gaps between each one, expanding the portal in front of Alos's eager eyes to see Will's work. You're almost there. Alos encouraged him, Will forcing his hand even more open, yelling in pain as if his fingers were separating themselves from his hand. The portal now starting to slowly expand, and Alos waited for the perfect moment for when he could easily slide through. I can't keep this up forever. Will yelled out in the room and to Alos, himself getting the message and backing up a few feet from the portal. He now looked at it, knowing within a few seconds it would be wide enough to fit his body through. The pressure started to build, and after a quick breath of confidence, he commanded to Will. In 5 seconds, close it. Alos now sprinted at the portal, jumping up and extending his arms out, which hit the middle of the circle going through, and he dived his body through, landing in a patch of grass and looking back at the portal from earth soil, the portal closing in on itself instantly after. In Will's room, he now clenched his fist, the sudden movement causing a reaction down his arm as he twirled around on the floor, holding his hand which felt like it had been bitten by thousands of fire ants. He let out another scream in pain, now slamming his fist into the floorboard. His hand started to now become numb, or at least cool down from the initial pain he had faced, but still figured he had the inability to move any of his fingers, and knowing he wouldn't want to even if he could. Will then heard something from behind him, the tiny sound of an animal walking behind, coming from the closet. He looked over, immobilized while on the floor, but seeing the small outline of an animal hiding in the closet, not much bigger than the common rabbit which was taught to him by Nick. You're okay, buddy? Will said to the animal. The idea of him scaring the creature while closing the portal being a likely possibility. He used his other arm to drag himself over, noticing his breath slowing down and his eyes closing, not having the energy to keep them open. It's just a headache. You just need to hydrate more and probably eat healthier food. Give your body 2 to 3 days rest and don't look at any screens. People are saying that's the new cancer these days. But other than that, you should be back to normal. The doctor prescribed to the upset man, still wearing his suit but now dirty from collapsing while at work. That doesn't work. I have clients. You're a doctor. Don't you have some type of medicine that is going to fix all of this quickly? Guess how much 2 to 3 days cost me? Thousands. It's already bad enough I collapsed in front of one client, but now to call 5 or 6 more to tell them I can't see them, ridiculous. The patient went, tapping his foot against the bed he was sat upright on, now playing with his gold metallic watch. Mr. Dasner, please. You work nearly 14-hour days, 7 days a week. I heard you don't vacation, and if you do leave the state, you're on calls the entire time. You're not a normal human. The human mind should not be put to work like this without release. Dr. Djakovic responded, I got the hookers and strippers. That's my release. If that doesn't work, I'll drink clean whiskey, maybe scotch or smoke a smoked Caribbean Cuban. Do you even know what that is, doctor? It costs more than a week's pay for you. So don't tell me how to live my life. Tell me how you can fix me within the hour, or I find a new doctor. Adam Dasner said angrily, fed up with the laid-back excuses this so-called Dr. Daniel Djakovic had been saying. There's a drug I can give you. It's new, but it puts your brain and body in override. You take it, take a nap, and when you awake, you feel powered up, restored. The only side effect is a very slim chance that this happens again. Dr. Djakovic said. A slim chance? A slim chance makes or break million-dollar contracts. Dasner questioned him. I'm forced to say a slim chance. Will this medicine have any bad side effects for you? No. Simple as that. Dr. Djakovic responded, now going to the medicine cabinet and grabbing the bottle for which the pills came in. Let's just do it then. Faster I'm out of here, the faster I got back to making money. Dasner demanded to him. Djakovic then went over to the patient, placing the 2 large olive-sized orange pills on the white sheets of the bed. Swallow those 2 now, then we are going to watch a video, and then you will go home and sleep. Sleep for a good 6 hours, don't worry about losing work. You can be up for the next 20 if your mind wanted, the doctor said. What video? Dasner asked, now picking up and swallowing both of the pills, using a glass of water to chase it down, now waiting to be done with the clinic. It activates the neural response in the brain. Djakovic explained. It is certain stimuli at different pitches, makes your brain active, which tells the medicine where it needs to travel to support it. Basically, making it focus solely on the brain. Now, turning on the TV, sat in front of Mr. Dasner, playing the video to him. So, Nick, how's your courses going? Still wanting to get into the FBI? Officer Greg Olston asked me who I had got assigned to after Dip failed to return 2 days ago from his vacation. Good, Greg. I just passed the written and intellectual part. Now I am waiting to take the physical and get granted access to join in a couple of months. I replied happily to him, walking up the driveway. That's really good. Biggest hurdle is the written procedures. Unless you're me, then that physical can be quite rough. But you should be fine, you're young, so you don't have my issues. Greg said to me with a chuckle as he plumped his belly up and down. We now walked into the home, belonging to an accountant named Henry Lee, who seemed to have committed suicide. I walked into the living room, originally where he was found suffocated to death, presumably by a rope he had fastened around himself. There was the white chalk outline, myself imagining his body being discovered by one of Henry's co-workers who had checked on him when he didn't come to work. I took a moment to myself, starting to worry about Dip since it seemed no one had heard from him the last 5 days, and the last 2 days being completely gone when he should have been back. I remember myself calling him 2 or 3 times and staying on the line a minute each call, hoping the ringing would end and I could hear him. I only stopped after Angel had told me to, since himself and a director in the area failed to contact him. So, Mr. Fuchu FBI, what do we know about this case? Greg asked me, taking me away from the living room and into the kitchen. Well, not much. The body was found on Monday after he failed to come in. Henry seemed to be normal according to accounts, except for the causal migraine which he went to go see a doctor for named Dr. Yakovich. Got a prescription from those visits, newer drug, but seems to check out. Another strange fact is that it seems Henry's money has disappeared. The $20,000 he had in his account last week, now only $4,000 today. I believe that's the main reason Angel is sending more officers to look around. This money being lost could be a sign of foul play. Any idea of where the money could have gone? Greg asked Nick, impressed by how much detail he remembered from reading about this case an hour ago. A young kid like him, probably gambling or drinking. I think that's a growing trend these days. I said, looking at the empty bottles of different liquor, Smirnoff, Grey Goose, Fonyad, Tito's, reminding me of my own collection at home. Those were the days, Greg joked, stepping out into the kitchen and walking upstairs. I'm assuming we look around for 30 minutes, give the place a fresh set of eyes to see if they missed anything. You know, a case like this, where a kid does something awful to himself when everything seems to be going fine, reminds me of a case a couple years back. Seems that the kid flew to Vegas and spent it all, but no transcripts of any of his money ever being spent there ever came up. Just a postcard that was found with his buddy. It's strange, too. Nearly a year after he died, a check in his name was deposited. No idea of who got the money, but it was worth $2,000 to $3,000 if I remember correctly. That's awful, I replied. I don't know how the people around him ever recovered. I don't think people ever do. It's like there's always something missing once someone leaves. The fact you didn't get to say goodbye stings too, might be the worst part. And the lingering fact of you thinking you could have done something. Greg went, my stomach dropping as dip came into my conscious. Finally, Alos went, seeing the small building me and Will called home. Alos approached carefully, avoiding anything that could deter attention to him while sneaking in through a window. Alos then looked around, noticing the dirty clothes and trash bag laying in the middle of the hallway, rolling his eyes and moving upstairs. Alos first went to my room, and then leaving, hoping to find Will, which he saw in his own room, laid out on his bed playing a video game on a handheld console. So your magic trick didn't kill you, Alos said, a gleeful Will putting down the game and turning to him. You made it here. He exclaimed to Alos, who shut the door behind him. So, what are we doing now? Will asked. Alos nodding, trying to think of a good answer, but explained, Well, this was the end of my plan. Make sure you're safe. Maybe I can stick around, see if Nick, your brother correct, and Dip are okay. Will nodded, saying, You could play a video game with me. We race and collect coins in it. I'm good, Will. Glad you're enjoying this world. Lot better than the hell I came from. Passing up his invitation. Footsteps now came from downstairs, forcing Alos and Will to look at the door. No one should be home. Nick is gone doing police stuff and his roommates all have class. Alos opened the door, peering down the steps and seeing the landing pad with nothing in sight. I want my egg, you tiny humans. Give it or die. A taunting voice went through the house. Alos went down the steps, seeing a blue figure in the kitchen, flowing tentalsas in the back of its head now spiking up as the creature looked over to Alos. The creature instantly fired a red bolt, Alos ducking out of the way as it burned a hole into the wall. Who's this black figure human? Did Krell not trust me to finish this job? You're not already dead, are you? I would hate to be talking to a corpse. The creature went from downstairs. Who are you? Alos called out from the living room adjacent to the creature. Perry, and I would love to know yours. The creature responded. What are you doing here? Did you escape through Will's portal too? Did Galen send you? Alos asked Perry, now moving across the dining room he was in, seeing the back side of this Perry creature. His tentacles immediately went up, and he turned around, blasting the doorway with Alos being a foot away from the dart. A portal? Is that like a travel tunnel? And who's Gallon? If he's from the Ishmael group, then he might get even madder when I kill you, considering the fact I killed 5 out of his top 7 hunters. Perry went, chuckling and reminiscing on old times. Perry waited for Alos's response, and with none being given, Perry remarked, "If I have to, I can force the information out of you. I don't think Krell will approve of my tactics, but it doesn't matter if he never knows." Perry then walked into the dining room slowly, Alos rushing up the stairs and moving into Nick's room, Will scared and hidden in his own. Perry now followed Alos's scent, going up and into the room where Alos sat beside him, lunging and pushing him. Perry responded quickly, throwing a punch at Alos, then twirling him, causing him to fall against the bed, his silver pistol now aimed at Alos's head. "I don't recognize your species. What planet are you from?" Perry asked. "Bad choice of words," Alos said, preparing for his death when Perry got flung against the wall by a beam of black and desert beige color. Alos looked over, Will in the doorway with his arm up from where the beam had come from. "They talked about powers from the ancients," Alos said, now rushing himself and Will out the door. "Can you drive?" Alos asked Will once they had reached downstairs. "Yes, but only in emergencies, according to Nick," Will responded. Alos nodded, adding, "If this doesn't count, I don't know what does." Now watching Will grab the keys and go outside, going to an older car Nick had picked up for Will. They backed out, leaving the door of the house open and squealing down the road, causing a scene with the neighbors. Perry now stood up in the room, pulling out a device and seeing the signal he was following still nearby, knowing that Alos and the human left the egg there. He went into Will's bedroom, pulling half of the opened egg out from under Will's bed, the yolk still hot as he smeared it off his hand onto a blanket. Sirens now came on from outside, reminding Perry of the government building he had raided, the blue and red colors coming through the windows in the front. Perry knew he had to escape, that the fate of the planet would be destroyed if he didn't in the slim chance the responding officers killed him. He jumped out the back window running, the police officer putting in his description to the dispatcher as he saw him escape. The clouds started to cover up the already descending sun, casting the figure in shadows as they walked down the street, not glancing at the other people looking at him, who watched from afar, curious on why he was carrying 2 large duffel bags. Once he entered the bank, more and more people took notice, including the security who walked out from their main office, meeting him at the counter. "I need $150,000 from my account," the figure said to the clerk, noticing his focused but unalive eyes staring at her. "Can I see an ID and your card with us, sir?" She said to the man, the security guards approaching the man's left and right shoulder, ensuring their own safety. He reached for his jacket, the guards paying special attention, relived when he pulled his black embroidered wallet out of his pocket, sliding his own ID and card out, now extending them out with 2 fingers to the waiting clerk who snathed it. She inserted the bank card into the machine, his account pulling up and reading the amount of funds, nearly shocked that what he had requested was in there. She now studied the ID, holding it up and comparing it to his face. Everything matching, even the small cut right above the left eye. "What's your address?" She then asked the man, 2011 North 40th Street. A reply given, the clerk reading the address correctly on the card. "And your date of birth?" "March 3rd, 1970, in Sun Slope, California." The man replied, his face missing of any expression. The clerk looked at the 2 guards, both waiting for confirmation that the information had checked out. She gave a nod, signaling it did, and they walked away, saying to the waiting man, "Give me a second, Mr. Dasner." Now moving back away from her post and rolling out a cart with $100 bills stacked upon it 2 minutes later. Again, Mr. Dasner didn't give an expression, just handing the bag over to the clerk as she opened it up, then pushing the money into each crevice. She repeated this process a total of 5 times, each time putting around $30,000 into both of the bags. After she zipped them, Dasner dropped his knees, squatting down and lifting the bags up, then turning around and leaving the bank. When he came out, the sun was fully gone. But this didn't stop Dasner from walking down the road, eventually finding himself to the entrance of a large wooded park nearly 3 miles from the bank. He entered, stepping through the sticks and springing grasses, not even noticing the biting mosquitoes on his arm. He then found himself at a place of no known significance to him besides the idea in his mind he had to stop. He dropped the bags, now grabbing a stick and digging a hole in the ground. It took him 2 hours to dig the hole deep enough to encapsulate both of the bags he had brought, dropping them in, and then leaving the park, tripping at least 2 times over the forested floor from which he trekked on. "Get me on the phone with the officer that saw it," the impatient general demanded, knowing in his mind he had seen the blue alien bastard who had made a fool of him. "He's on the line, sir," a lieutenant added, the general ripping the phone out of his hand and spoke. "So what exactly did you see, officer?" "It was small, and it moved fast once on the ground." The officer replied, a nervous laugh after from how tense he could feel the caller being. "Small and fast. Are you telling me you saw a child?" The general replied. "No, at least I don't think so. It was blue and looked reptilian. But it happened so fast, I'm not sure." The officer muttered. "Not sure. Did you see a child Halloween costume early, or did you see an alien?" The general demanded. "An alien? I'm not sure. But there was a shot inside the house, it seems. Burned the wall. Couldn't have come from a lead bullet," the officer said, the call immediately cutting out after. The general threw the phone on the table. "Delete that recent transmission. That conversation can't be traced," he commanded, now looking through the photos on the desk, seeing the burnt wall caused by a misfire from Perry's gun. "Get at least 500 men to Livingston, Oregon. We have an alien to hunt," was the general's final command of the night. Someone believes to have gotten robbed while out during the night, Greg. I said to him as I drove toward his house, passing houses that elapsed a lifetime of me working. He said he lost $150,000 from the bank, but we have witnesses who say they saw him withdraw the money out. "Seems like he just had a little bit too much fun last night," Greg replied, rolling into the tiled driveway that stretched across the yard, the home being wider than a football field. "I think he would be fine losing 150. Greg joked as we stepped out, myself noticing the water feature splash onto shiny black rocks. We stepped inside. Adam Dasner, who was the victim, wrapped up in a blanket on a white leather couch, a younger woman seeming to be his assistant at his side, holding a cup of coffee for him. We approached him as he barked at us. "I want an update on my missing money." "Please calm down, Dasner. They are here to help you," an officer said who had already questioned Dasner, her response sounding as if this wasn't the first order barked at them. "I call you up, tell you my money is missing from my bank. You have the technology to track every finance down to the cents. I want to know exactly who took my money." "It seems like you did, Mr. Dasner," I said to him, a response of a quick glance from him, his eyes skewed down. "I would remember if I took that money out, child. Maybe it was you that took it. I bet you have never even seen 150,000 before. Probably not even 10,000. He responded to me. "That's enough." The officer beside him said, "Greg and Will, you want to look around. Make sure there's no signs of breaking and entering in your expert eyes." Greg nodded, leaving the room and moving down the hallway. Eventually, we turned into a bathroom with the iconic steam shower in the back and a giant houseplant seeping in sunlight from the skylight above. Greg then opened a cabinet as I walked into the next bedroom connecting to the bathroom. "Come over here." I heard Greg call to me, my body moving over as he pulled a medicine container out of the cabinet. "This is the same prescription found from the guy who committed suicide, right? The one who lost 10,000 right before he died." We left the bathroom, returning to the living room and asking Mr. Dasner, What can you tell us about this medicine? He looked at it and asked, What does my medical history have to do with solving this case? I replied to him, It's just official work we are doing. Could be a lead, could not be, but the information from this is important. Dasner rolled his eyes, knowing we wouldn't be easy to stray away from this topic. I take these for my head. Supposed to be a new, up-and-coming drug. My doctor Yakovich gave me it. I nodded, relating the information from the other case and telling Greg, We have to go and see about this new lead. Leaving the room as Dasner asked, These little pills I take better help them find my money. We arrived to the hospital 10 minutes later, asking the receptionist who told us that Yakovich was in today. We came to his office, asking him, You are given out a medicine for headaches. Tell me about that. Yakovich smiled, saying, It's client confidentiality. I can't give that information up. I looked at him, Yakovich now asking, You need to leave if you don't have anything else for me. I have another patient soon. Greg now moved across the room, playing the TV. A video popped up, Yakovich's voice calmly saying numbers out the speakers. A slow and hypnotic wave appearing on the screen of black and white shades. What's the numbers about? I asked him. Yakovich now backing up and defensively saying, You need to leave now. The video kept playing, Greg now figuring the meaning GPS. The police were in the forest an hour later, grabbing the $150,000 out from where Yakovich had told Dasner to place it. Yakovich was then arrested, myself going with him to be booked at the station, him cussing at me as he was taken, an endless rage of me ending a plot which could have extended for years. I then turned to the captain's office, hoping to update him on the latest arrest. Inside, I found Captain Angel at his desk, his ears focused on radio communications from the local parks department. We have an animal here in the woods. It's attacking everything it sees, including 2 hikers. Military personnel has made contact and is closing in to the location. Backup is requested. This is a code red for animal control. Repeat code red for animal control. Eliminate subject any means necessary. The glass shattered onto the tough reptilian skin of the creature as it raised its head, staring at the now terrified customers of the unknown and horrifying creature that had broken through the window. It stepped into the cafe, the customers grouping together in the back, as it crept, past the chairs and tables toward something. A man who had fallen down, now sliding back as the creature looked at him for lunch. He shouted for help, but then silence, as the creature lunged, his 4-foot-long alligator jaws clamping around the man's skull and rising him up, nearly hitting him against the ceiling light, now fully shutting. Its jaws as the body dropped down to the ground. Thump! The creature rolled the man's head down into its mouth as if it was a grape, then letting out a shriek, the horrified occupants scared of their turn. A gunshot now rang through the air, and then another followed by another. The shots struck the hide of the creature, one even striking the nearly 10-foot thin but strong tail that now waved in pain as it bled. The creature lunged at the attackers, which in its mind was the 3 cops' cars that were nearly half its size. It lunged into the hood, the engine falling through the car as the large body stood atop. The creature now piercing the roof of the car with its long snout, grabbing a headrest from the seat and ripping it apart. Multiple shots were fired now from the cops that had started to circle the animal, the hide still appearing as if it was a newborn, amazing the now hopeless police force. The creature lunged at another, ripping the torso of the man and sawing him in half with as it shaked the human back and forth. The creature then attacked again and again, making quick work of the depleting force. It now looked up, noticing the spinning blades of a helicopter cover its body, before a loud burst of rifle shots started to come down on the creature. A shot rang through a shoulder muscle of the creature, a yelp piercing even the pilot's ears, the occupants of the coffee shop closing their earways, now noticing the creature looking over to them. They see the people in the cafe. It's charging in. Civilians attacked. Repeat, this is a code red. Civilians attacked. Expect those on scene to be deceased. The voice rang through the radio. Angel sighing as he feared this threat would be past what they could handle. A threat he never would have expected to encounter in his working career. Where did this thing come from? He asked openly in his office, which contained me, Officer Greg, and another officer named Daniel. We don't know, sir. None of the labs can identify the creature, and no one will say where exactly it came from. There's a rumor going around this creature came from Russia, but there's no real merit to that claim. The only thing we know is that it likes to kill. It's already claimed 26 victims, 14 of them being our police force. And with each creature, it seems to grow, nearly a foot from the span of the last 8 hours based on photos. Daniel went, Angel shaking his head. So the devil placed this creature here and expect us to know how to deal with it? It looks that way, sir. Not one thing in our planet seems to be a distant cousin of this thing. Its snouts is the length of a baseball bat. Its body seems to be the body of a lizard with scales that no normal gun can pierce through. And its 15-foot-long tail has been seen to be whipped around and snap the bones of everything and anything it collides with. Daniel said, nearly out of breath as he described this Frankenstein creature. Hell has landed in Livingston, Angel exclaimed. I looked over at him stating, I need to leave for a few hours to check something. My deep intent in my voice signaling to him I wasn't going to be persuaded any other way. Just if I call you, I need you. Understood. I heard military is being sent anyway, so this works out. He told me, watching as I left the office. I arrived at my house 10 minutes later, seeing the area surrounded by black SUVs, the same SUVs that held government personnel and surrounded me and my friends in the woods a few weeks back. I walked out of the car and headed toward my house, then being stopped by a guard. Who are you, and what are you doing here? He interrogated me, my palms sweating as my face must have gotten as red as a tomato as I looked at him. No response being given to him. He repeated his question, this time in a more demanding and forward-like tone. I'm Dan. I have a friend who lives around here and I'm trying to find his home. I finally muttered to him, well, you need to leave here. This is an active crime situation and we can't have anyone interfere. I nodded, backing to my car and leaving my home, panic setting in for what could have happened to Will. I stared at my phone once in the car. My heartbeat raced in its own skeleton cage as I felt it bang against its imprisoned walls. What do I do? What do I do? I said to myself, panicking as my life around me shattered like a pot slowly falling down from a cabinet. I opened my phone, calling the only person I know that would have a clue on what to do. The phone rang for another minute before the line beeped indicating someone had picked up. Dip! It's me, Dip! I need your help. I think a creature is attacking Livingston. A creature from where Alos and Will came from. I don't know what to do. I was given a reply of silence on the other line, maybe hearing the slight exhale of a human on the other line, or maybe hearing my own echo as I breathed in and out at an attempt to calm myself down. Anyway, the line remained open for another 30 seconds, before a second click and the slight buzzing of the line going dead. I slumped my head down, now ringing the next person who would know what's going on. The first rang went by, but the second never appeared as he said on the other line, Nick, where the hell are you at? I just swung by the home. We have a shit ton of military personnel and they don't seem to be searching for the monster in Livingston at the moment. Did you leave before they could come? Yes, he responded. Alos came and found me. We were attacked by something from the dimension or space. He was looking for something, I think part of the asteroid we took. Okay, but you guys are safe. Where are you? I asked him hastily. The start of the Woodpine Trail. It's secluded, so no one should come here. He stated back, myself responding by putting the car in drive and moving down the street toward his location, ending the call with, "I'll be there in 10. As I pulled out the parking lot, I could feel myself being watched. Mostly the military officers making sure I left the scene, but also something else. A creature not from this world, whose blue tentacles started to rise from the top of his head as his reptilian circular eyes stared at my car as it drove by. I arrived to the heavily dense woods nearly 15 minutes later, making note that Will was correct, that there was no one else in sight. I parked my car next to his, kicking up some gravel in the parking lot as I ran toward Will, hugging him tight, which could have easily been mistaken for me attacking him. I looked over at Alos, his white pearl eyes staring at me uniquely, a thin black smile line on his face. "Good to see you, Nick. Where's Dip at?" He went to me. "I don't know. He's been missing for 5 days now. People are starting to think the worst has happened." I replied to him, "If it's the worst thing, then it won't be the first time Dip has evaded it." Alos went, then hearing us scuffle off at the start of the tree line. I looked up, definitely noticing the leaves that were still shaking quietly, a contrast from the others. "Who are you?" Alos exclaimed out to the unknown presence. "You know who I am? We met a few hours ago." A voice went to the group, myself trying to pinpoint where in the trees it came from. I then took a glance over at Will and Alos, both with their fists up ready for a fight, a small dust cloud appearing in Will's open fist. "Will, what is that?" I asked, then watching as he pushed his arm out, the dust cloud escaping the gravity of his body and striking a tree, the 50-foot-high branches up top swaying from the attack. "Come out, you freak," Alos said to what Will had attacked. "You have to be nice. If you kill me, I don't think anyone here survives the next week." The voice went. "What do you mean by that?" Will said, another small dust cloud slowly gaining size in his hand. "The creature on the loose. That thing will kill me quick if I try to stop it alone. Then you two will attack it without a clue of what it is and die. And that leaves this entire planet screwed since even your strongest bombs won't kill it." The voice said again. "Explain yourself." Will went. The woods went silent. Then the explainer walked out the woods in front of us three. An alien, or a distant cousin of Alos. Standing at around 4 feet tall, a dark shade of blue human-like skin, with a flat face with tentacles moving in the back of his head like the movement of a squid lifeless in the water. "My name's Perry, by the way, and let's put the house thing behind us to begin. You get it? Someone has something. You kill them to get it. Everyone has done it." Perry said to us. "You tried killing them," I exclaimed out to him, myself drawing my holstered pistol and pointing it at Perry, himself holding his own shiny silver pistol at me. "My tentacles can feel your conscious waves. I know when you will pull that trigger before you even touch the trigger, giving me enough time to blow that brain of your head to end all those thoughts." I paused for a second, realizing this could be an uphill battle with how both ways turn out. "Good idea." Perry then said, a moment later myself putting my gun back in the holster, speaking, "So this creature came from space. I'm assuming you found an asteroid and a green egg. That's where this creature came from. Now all of us 4 need to go kill it. Else this thing eats and eats, then reproduces with itself. Don't want to see it or ask questions, just trust me. Lays more eggs, which hatches. Those babies eat and reproduce. The cycle continues until no food is left on the planet. Then it's cannibalize, reproduce with itself. Wait for babies to hatch, and babies cannibalize pops or moms, whatever you want to pick. That makes sense to everyone?" The radio crackled in, possibly from how distant the closest radio tower was, or maybe the fact that his device wasn't as good at intercepting encrypted military waves as it was 10 years ago. Anyway, he zoned in on what he could hear, a voice coming from what he had gathered to be General Cope to the military personnel deployed in Livingston. He still couldn't figure out what they were hunting, as it went from a small alien-like creature to a much larger one. His mind drifted on what it could be in the silence, but with barely any description giving, he couldn't pinpoint a single creature that it could be. We have 2 suspects that we need to capture. The general then went. Nick and Will Gibbs are suspects and should be considered dangerous. I want them to be brought to California alive for questioning, any means necessary. There's a whole space program that tried and failed to kill these things? Will said out loud, then cuffing his hands up into his face and turned away from Perry. Well, yeah, but it's the government. You know how they handle stuff slow and inefficient, then make the little guy pay for it. Perry said, trying to get the group in on the idea that we remotely had a chance of killing this thing. There's reports that it took bullets. Like many bullets, even a rifle shot in the back that didn't stop it. What makes you think us as a group can do anything about it? I asked him. Well, your brother Will has powers, and so that gives a bit of a leg up on our competition. But to be fair, we are kind of in an uphill battle. Would be better if this planet could invent something greater than a metal firing shell. We have a greater chance than we realize. Alos then spoke up, the only words I had heard him say other than the greeting when I first arrived. Will, you demonstrated how much strength you have. From opening the portal to shooting an orb of energy from your palm, you are much more. You align with the tale. He went on, Will responding, What tale? A legend I thought when the Indians first told me about it. About an older figure, not part Indian, but an ally, who could move between the worlds. Itself held much power as well, fueled by the glue that held the 2 worlds separate but together. I now believe you are that figure, with the power of the rift between these 2 worlds that you can use to defeat this thing. Alos finished, staring at Will, who looked at him, and then laughed. Laughed like he had just been pranked. Laughed like he had just seen someone sit on a whoopee cushion. Alos bowed down his head, maybe having second thoughts instantly on what he just said. Well, whether he believes it or not, we don't have time to wait and find out. We need to find it. I say lure it out here, away from any interference from human friends, and kill this thing here. Even with Will not being this amazing figure, me and Alos should be able to kill it. Perry then said, walking over to my car and getting in the passenger side. Human drive, he barked at me before closing the door. The creature was now in the backyard when we found it, past the wrecked police cars that had now stopped it. We saw it grazing in the backyard, slurping water from a swimming pool as we approached. It looked over at us, Perry now rolling down the window and lifting himself up like Alan Grant looking at a dinosaur. He then pulled out his pistol, firing a shot into the creature, the jolt sending him back 5 feet rolling. He ducked down in the car. He should chase us. I looked at the creature as it got back on its feet, now just as Perry had said, raced toward the car. I hit the gas, swerving down the block and back toward the woods, the creature following the entire way. We were now back in the woods, the creature about 100 yards behind, closing in fast. We stopped the car, stepping out and running away, now watching as the creature rammed into the vehicle, sending it into a group of trees. Perry then shot at its side, the creature squirming to the reaction, now staring at Perry, rushing toward him and turning around, his whip-like tail making a streak across Perry. Me, Alos, and Will backed up, Will focusing on creating some type of weapon to defend himself while I aimed my gun, striking the creature in the head with my pistol. This time, the creature let out a moan and ran into the woods. We moved to the center of the patch, watching movement coming from the tree line. It wasn't long till the creature showed itself again, this time rushing at Alos, who aimed his own gun Perry had given him, striking it straight on before its extended jaw swung like a bat, causing him to fall down. I then watched as the creature jumped on its hind legs. Its jaws opened wide, ready to swallow Alos as it came down. A quicker reaction of Alos pulling the trigger, shooting a bullet through its mouth. The creature stumbled, back then looking at me, rising its clawed paw and striking down. 3 long streaks caused by the steak knife razor-sharp claw. I screamed in pain as I rolled away. Alos and Will now stood together, with Alos looking over at Will. Remember what you were built for. Alos then moved to the side, pulling the trigger and adding more and more shot marks into the creature's hide, some blood starting to slowly seep out the wounds. The creature attacked again at Alos, this time a successful hit with the tail knocking him back. While distracted, Will went over to me, asking out of breath, "Are you okay?" I looked up, seeing Alos be pinned by the creature, himself believing his fate had been sealed, which I thought all of ours had been. Be who you are supposed to be. I said to Will, maybe a last-ditch movie-like effort to motivate him. I then watched the creature go in for the final shot against Alos, but a red streak zipping past the field and striking the creature on its neck changed that. I looked for the source. Perry bleeding, but standing as his pistol was held up. The creature made eye contact with him, now rushing Perry, avoiding 2 of the 3 shots Perry shot, not even stopping for the headshot that had hit him. The creature now jumped 10 feet away from Perry. Its jaws opened wide. Now something appeared in front of Perry, a bunch of particles appearing almost out of nowhere, but it wasn't. I looked to my side. Will's hand opened wide, generating the force to create a portal, large enough for the creature to jump into, its body being fully encapsulated. Will then closed it, falling to the ground and holding his previously opened hand. The spinning helicopter blades then came on overhead. A couple engines of heavy-duty cars also came into listening range a few seconds later. "Someone's coming?" Will said, scared. "Military," I said, regrouping with Alos and Perry, who were struggling but could stand on their own feet. "I know a place we can lay low." Alos said, now going into the woods. We followed him through twists and turns for what seemed like an hour before he eventually stopped. I looked around, not seeing anything besides more trees, which I had become accustomed to while on the walk. Alos then made his way over to some rocks, and after a second standing, disappeared among them. I walked over, seeing the cause. A hole about 2 feet wide in diameter, enough for me, Will, and Perry to follow him. We dropped down into a rectangular metal box, the inside reminding me of the shell of a shipping container. I then looked across, seeing Alos, and then another figure behind him. "Dip," I said with a gasp, now walking over to him. He stood beside a radio attached to the wall. The current communications were the Livingston dispatcher repeating a command to send more and more troops out to our general area. "We all need to get out of here. Our men are being sent here along with military. They know the area, and the military have the weapons to kill us all." Dip said to the group, "But what's the plan?" I asked him, looking around at the bare walls of the shelter with only a radio, a duffel bag, and a piece of paper with phone numbers. One I recognized being Dip's being hung on the wall. "I can help with that." "I don't know. I have Perry money." Then said out loud, "260,000 focusing from Dip to him. But we need to leave here. Jump states." "How's that?" I asked him. "I could take you all home with me. You wouldn't be able to come back to this planet, but that would mean no one's after you." I shook my head. "We can't do that. This is my home. This is Will's home. Dip has spent 45 years on this planet," I argued. "It's an option. Plus, I wouldn't want to stay on this planet long anyway." Perry smirked. "No, it's not." Alos then went. "Will needs to stay here, monitor the situation of the 2 different worlds. Nick and Dip need to stay with him, make sure he's safe." He continued. "And what about you, Alos?" Will asked the being. "This isn't my home, and I can't return to my original, which means I need to go find my own new home. I will stay with Perry, if that's okay." He finished looking over at Perry, who nodded in agreeance. Then it's settled. Me, Nick, and Will find a new home across the country. Alos and Perry leave, and we go back to doing normal human things, making no magic portals open. We moved out of the underground fortress, making sure no one was around before running down a trail behind Perry. Perry led us for 2 hours through deep forest, finally coming upon his ship in the middle of nowhere. We boarded, myself in the back, magnetified by the superior technology on board, the dials and switches lining the wall with labels in an unknown alien language not giving me a clue of what was going on. We then started to take off, the aircraft hovering above the ground and slowly rising as if I was rising from the bottom of a pool, reaching for a new gasp of fresh air at the surface. We then took off, the force pushing me against the seat. We finally descended an hour later, Perry landing the ship in the location Dip had consoled Perry with. At this time, it was nearly 3 a.m., an open wasteland of what seemed to be corn crops stretching out for miles and miles. "We'll wait a second," Alos said as the door of the spacecraft opened, me and Dip both walking out into the summer dry air. "If you need me, you can reach out, much like you did when you talked to me in the other dimension. It's a feeling inside of you." Alos spoke to Will, a small tear rolling down his face, wondering if he was ever going to see him again. "You will." Alos spoke to him, nearly reading his mind. Alos then turned around back into the ship, leaving Will with no choice than come to us outside. The ship then rose, taking off and disappearing among the stars. Dip then walked through the field, myself and Will following as he went into an old barn in the middle of the field. We laid upon straw that sat against the wall, Dip hanging the duffel bag of money onto a post and reaching into one of the pockets, pulling out a small radio. He extended the antenna on the device, then turning it on, myself hearing static but hearing a voice saying, "Report update. 2 bodies, those of Nick and Will Gibbs, were found deep in the woods, assumingly attacking the unidentified creature which had attacked Livingston. Military was able to neutralize on sight." I said back in the straw, "I'm dead," I muttered to myself. "At least they gave you an honorable death. My death is going to be a suicide, one where I drowned myself in the ocean." Dip sad, trying to comfort me. "What will we do now?" I asked Dip. Dip said solemnly, "Create new lives for ourselves. Start over.